World erosion? This is a phenomenon where our reality is being worn away by another space dimension. Just as the name implies, when world erosion strikes, the environment becomes twisted, and the erosion races will invade from the other side. Among them are entities that take on a human-like form. And then, those who stand up against world erosion are honored as the Azure generation. Our protagonist, with a body only suited to seal curses, is also a part of that generation. He was turned into a lightning rod, absorbing all the curses, and finally he was even betrayed by his own teammates. It really was a miserable life. The story begins at the place where the final battlefield took place. The screams echoed in Crash's ears. "You, what the hell do you think you're doing, you useless piece of trash?" On the other side, Sigrun urged, "Hurry up and take that curse from Arthur, do it now, hurry up." Crash squeezed his eyes shut and thought to himself, "Damn it, I've reached my limit too." With a trembling tone, he replied, "I'm taking it now." At this moment, his hand, glowing with incantations and deep purple spiritual energy, reached out. Crash Valheim was born into the most powerful clan. Suddenly, his pupils dilated wide. Krash manipulated his energy into a long, jagged ribbon heading toward Arthur. His origin is nothing short of a curse itself. Immediately after, the piece of cloth on his shoulder was torn. Just like that, Crash's hand continuously emitted mysterious purple energy. Among the heroes who stood up against the world's erosion, he was the one standing alone in what was called the Azure generation. The next second, Krash spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Sigrun, ignoring him as he collapsed, held the potion out to Arthur. "Sir Arthur, please drink this potion." He momentarily looked up toward the high sky. Right at this moment, the Blue Reaper arrived riding a dragon, holding a razor-sharp axe, constantly creating balls of red fire that fell below. He let out a desperate roar, emitting several dark circles. That fireball immediately slammed into the ground. Arthur trembled and said, "Are we really going to defeat the Blue Reaper Knight with just this many people?" The sword momentarily fell from his hand, and he insisted it was impossible. "Sigrun, Abela, Mary, everyone, get here quickly." The whole group immediately rushed to Arthur, shouting, "Sir Arthur." Crash, in his tattered clothes, looked up from below. "Arthur, you bastard, what the hell are you doing?" He looked down and replied, "I'm ending this right here. At this moment, the hope of this world has been severed. Now, only ruins remain." He boiled with rage, gritting his teeth. He questioned, "Do you mean to say you're giving up? After everything we've done to get you here, do you even know how many people died for this? Is it all just because you were too busy messing around with those things that you've finally lost your mind?" Sigrun couldn't hold back and shouted, "Shut up, Crash. Sigrun Efania, the third princess of the Efania Empire." The Azure generation crossed her arms and cursed, "Arthur has tried his best. You're just a piece of trash who can't do anything but steal. Don't you dare talk back to Arthur." Upon hearing that, he clutched his face and repeated, "Trash, who the hell are you talking to? How dare you say that to the one who saved your lives? Listen, you guys couldn't have even made it here if it wasn't for my skills. If you've forgotten, then let me remind you. Starting with you, Abela. Abela, the Red Witch of the Magic Tower, Azure generation." Crash yelled, "You were the one who said you couldn't use magic if you lost your voice. Wasn't it you who begged me to take that curse? Now I'm the one suffering from your curse. And yet, you attack me when I go to get pain medication." He recalled her cold expression and continued, "Back then and even now, your habit of looking down on others hasn't changed at all. And beside you is the Empire's strongest spear, Mary Diana, Royal Knight of Ephania, the Azure generation. A brainless idiot, rushing in without thinking, getting hit with all sorts of curses and then whining at me to take the pain away. And princess, you call your savior trash. You've targeted me since the academy just because I belong to the Starlon Kingdom faction." Even after being bullied like that, Crash recalled the moments he was beaten and humiliated. "Look at that failure can't even fight back. Is he an idiot or what?" His tone became even harsher, gritting his teeth. "I endured it all just to heal your eyes. Why, you ask? Because you are those of the Azure generation, the people who could save this country. While I was hated by the entire kingdom just because I lacked combat ability. I've been cleaning up your messes all this time. What has it all meant in the end? I don't care about others, but you guys were supposed to be the ones to save the world. Arthur, you were supposed to lead those idiots. I witnessed you standing at the front lines of the Azure generation, and I was determined to be by your side until the very end. So why are you giving up so easily?" Arthur moved his lips. Now I can tell you the truth. Like I said, this world is finished, so I'm going to redo everything from the beginning. He widened his eyes, questioning, redo, what are you talking about? He explained indifferently, that's right, this isn't the first time I've witnessed the apocalypse because... Crash was stunned when he heard Arthur's next words. My skill is regression. Now I will cast the memory storage technique, and we can go back to the past with our memories intact. A thought suddenly popped into his head. If everyone could start over with their current experience, Crash reasoned that the chance of preventing the apocalypse in the next world would skyrocket. Arthur hugged his people and laughed wildly. That's my plan. I'll start over from the beginning with these three. The four of you, but what about me? He suddenly smirked mysteriously. Arthur raised his finger and emphasized, you're not needed. He momentarily placed his hand on his chest, his whole body seemingly paralyzed. Arthur pointed to his own head, acknowledging, it's true that your black hat skill is actually useful. It's true that you can steal even the most impenetrable curses. But what's the point of regressing with a wreck like you? Honestly, what else are you even good for? So wouldn't it be better to wipe your memory so you can become a completely different person in the new world? Crash shed a tear, wondering, so am I just a disposable tool to you? Did this bastard see me as a throwaway tool from the start? He smirked, don't worry, I'll make good use of you in the next world and the world after that too. He widened his eyes, listening to Arthur's voice in his ear. See you later, Crash. He hurriedly stood up, walking and shouting, wait, hold on. Crash reached out to them from deep within his heart. He had always known this. When the Azure generation stood by and Arthur just watched, he knew he had never really considered him a teammate. Crash fell, desperately yelling, take me with you, you bastard. Arthur in front just laughed like a madman. Crash's consciousness faded due to the accumulated curses. His life would be extinguished before this world could collapse. Crash clenched his fist, calming himself down. No, I won't let it end like this. He told himself, I will become the strongest, the most important character and slay the dragon alone. I'll win with my intellect and defeat the four heavenly kings. Black Hat is a skill that steals not only curses but also skills. I've never tried it on Arthur because his skill isn't simply a curse. But this time it's worth taking a gamble. Black Hat skill. His back immediately caught Crash quotes eye. A source of energy was now radiating around Arthur. His energy hand had gradually touched him. Crash continuously controlled his spiritual power from behind. Suddenly he paused, groaning, wait. A tongue suddenly flicked out, licking around its teeth on its hand. Under Crash's palm, a similar state seemed to be appearing. A voice spoke up, Arthur. He closed his eyes, lowered his head and asked, Crash, are you still not willing to let go? He retracted his palm, hesitating. You've experienced countless apocalypses, and every time I lost my value you threw me away like trash. You left me in the middle of a world about to perish time and time again. How many times have I tasted that despair? But this time, Arthur, you are the one being left behind. He was confused and asked, are you crazy? Crash just silently smiled brightly. At this time, the Blue Reaper was flying down from above. Crash happily pointed his finger to the sky, perhaps so. He looked at his face with glowing pupils and repeated, didn't you say so yourself? This world is about to perish. Arthur flinched, sweat pouring down. He widened his eyes, tears welling up in the corners of his eyes. The next second, Arthur stiffened and collapsed. Crash looked toward the Blue Reaper and yelled, if you don't want to die, struggle for once. He quickly shot down a source of energy. He emphasized each word, I will be the one to save the new world. Not long after, Crash was still keeping his eyes tightly closed. He suddenly frowned, his breathing becoming difficult. Crash suddenly opened his eyes wide. He raised his hand toward the chandelier and let out a desperate scream. Crash was stunned for a moment by the scene before him. He noticed the familiar door out there. Crash glanced around the room suspiciously. This place is. He touched his face and exclaimed, isn't this my childhood home? Crashvalheim returned at the age of 13. Regression complete, he panicked and yelled, I've turned young again. Returning to reality, he gasped at his child's body. Crash couldn't help but be terrified, letting out a desperate scream. He looked at the luxurious room suspiciously. Is this my room? Just a moment ago it was the middle of a cold winter. Now it was summer, hot enough to make him sweat. If I am at the Green Pine Estate, where I lived as a child, then that means the last card I played was using Black Hat on Arthur. Did I succeed in stealing his regression skill? Crash ran his hand through his hair, smiling faintly. He glanced to the side, wondering, but how could I have stolen it? People often think Black Hat is a skill that can be used freely without limits, but it has a fatal weakness. Black Hat can only steal the target's item when the user unlocks it. That padlock is created based on the value the owner assigns to the item. Even a stone on the side of the road, if the owner considers it a treasure, the difficulty will skyrocket. The condition for unlocking is transferring 99% of the world's assets to the owner. With something like a unique skill that the opponent highly cherishes, the difficulty of stealing must be extremely high. Krash rubbed his chin and thought, the greater the value, the more conditions and the harder it is to complete. Arthur, what was he thinking in his head? Crash knew Black Hat was activated at that time, but he didn't see the padlock. Crash muttered, the fact that there is no padlock like that means he really wants to throw this skill away. He wants to abandon the regression skill again. He recalled the past. Thinking back, sometimes Arthur would reveal an expression of extreme exhaustion. He acted as if he was completing a mission reluctantly. A world constantly heading toward destruction like that, if Arthur had to repeat it all alone time and time again, he surely wouldn't have been able to keep his sanity. Crash pondered. Has Arthur become drunk on his own tragedy, pretending to save the world alone? Perhaps for Arthur, regression was no different from a curse. That's the reason he wanted those three to inherit his memories and regress with them, while excluding me. The fact that I was able to steal the skill with Black Hat means, knowing that Crash had lost his regression skill and was left behind in a world on the brink of destruction. Before dying under the meteor shower of the Blue Death Knight, which meant Arthur was dead. Back to reality, Crash stood up, his tone cold. I took away the thing you wanted to discard the most, you should be thanking me. Thinking of this, he broke into a slight smirk. Crash recalled his miserable past, thinking, you always ostracized only me. As if bearing the curse was something anyone could do. You never paid attention to the comrades suffering in the darkness. At that time, Crash was probably better off dead, his tears always on the verge of spilling out. He smirked smugly, serves you right, you piece of trash. The scene shifts to the hallway of the Green Pine Manor. Before leaving the room, Crash had looked in the mirror, thinking to himself that he was so small. He looked about 10 years old, short in stature but with toned muscles. This was the result of fighting with a sword day and night to survive in the Valheim family, the strongest martial arts clan in the Starlon Kingdom. Crash looked out into the garden and deduced, if I am at the Green Pine Manor, it means the 10-year-old coming-of-age proving ceremony has just ended. The Valheim family's proving ceremony demonstrates one's ability by revealing the contracted god and the bestowed skills. The main Valheim bloodline is always highly respected, but Crash was the sole exception. He had absolutely zero martial arts talent from birth, because no god had chosen him. After that, Crash was kicked out of the main estate. He recalled the moment he stood alone in front of the massive gates. Crash pursed his lips in internal anger and was banished to the Green Pine Villa, a place of house arrest for failures. Now only him, the most incompetent member of the Valheim family, knew beforehand about the end of the world, a great catastrophe that not even the Azure generation could stop. Will I be able to prevent it? Crash imagined a pile of corpses stacked on top of each other, muttering, the day the world gets destroyed. He tremblingly raised his tiny arm high up. Crash instantly clenched his fist, telling himself, stop complaining. This isn't a matter of whether I can do it or not. It's something I absolutely have to do. Because if the world is destroyed, I'll die too. Crash curled his fingers, putting on a demonic expression. There is no other choice. And the first step to prevent the great catastrophe is... Right at this moment, the sound of footsteps echoed. Ariad placed a hand on his chest, bowing 90 degrees and calling out, young master. He approached, immediately recognizing the familiar face, Ari. At this time, he was still alive, huh? Then he cheerfully asked, what are you doing here? Ariad, the sole butler of the Green Pine Villa, took Crash's hand and replied, is something wrong, young master? Ari was the one taking care of a failure like him, but his face suddenly dripped with sweat when he heard the words whispered in his ear. The poison that my brother gave you to kill me. He widened his eyes like a soulless person, questioning, when are you planning to use it? That guy was the mastermind who made Crash drink poison at age 14 and taught him his first lesson in betrayal. The scene shifts to the training grounds, where a bunch of young men were being beaten and sent flying everywhere. And the one who defeated them was a young girl with a ridiculously long weapon in her hands. Her whole body radiated a mysterious spiritual energy right as those guys crashed heavily into the dirt. The crowd sitting and watching couldn't help but gasp in shock. Is she really only 15 years old? Even the knights can't lay a finger on her. The title of Sword Saint isn't just for show. Charlotte Valheim Crash older sister spoke in an indifferent tone. How boring. Everyone eagerly gossiped. Rumor has it she's a once-in-a-millennium genius. That's right, exactly. That's why the family is placing so many expectations on her. Balak in Valheim, Crash's half-brother. Overhearing all these words, a genius born from a new bloodline. That's what people say about her. Thanks to her, the Valheim family will never perish. He glared, his tone full of murderous intent. I will wipe out that entire bloodline. But the shedding was too dangerous. That mother was also quite formidable. The two people sitting in front continued whispering, "What's wrong with Lord Balakin?" "Keep quiet." Blokin laughed maniacally. Then the only one left is that useless failure. Not long after, he placed both hands on the table, discussing with Ariad. I plan to kill him first. You too, Ariad, you must be in a really tight spot, aren't you? It's all because of Crash that your career has stalled. If you give Krash even a single drop of this to drink, the medical treatments for your daughter and all your debts will be taken care of. Do you understand clearly? Then what are you hesitating for? He lowered his head in protest. Young Master Crash is someone I raised like my own flesh and blood. How could I do that to him? He crossed his arms, letting out a heavy sigh and calling, Ariad, are you going to choose someone else's child over your own biological daughter? Ariad pressed his lips tightly together, his voice trembling. No, sir. In a flash, someone coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood right in front of their plate of food. A tiny hand reached up, letting out a piercing scream. Crash, with tears welling up in his eyes, watched him collapse, calling out in a panic, Ari. He clutched his throat, his voice shaking. I am so sorry, young Master Crash. Before his regression, Ariad had planned to assassinate him. At that moment, he gently stroked Crash's cheek. Young Master Crash is as precious to me as my own child. A second later, Ariad's hand dropped with a thud onto the ground. He groaned, but what have I done? Ariad couldn't bear the guilt, so he consumed the poisoned soup himself before passing away. Back to reality, he widened his eyes in shock as he listened. The poison that my brother gave you to kill me. He emphasized every single word. When are you planning to use it? Ariad startled and yelled, What poison? Crash furrowed his brows, exposed. Are you trying to play dumb? You intended to kill me for the sake of your daughter because I'm just a failure, right? He hung his head down listening to the interrogation. Did you think I wouldn't know? Crash pondered, if this keeps up, I'll end up pushing him into a corner again. Then he let out a sigh and said, Anyway, if you want to keep pretending, that's up to you. If I hadn't been a failure from the start, you wouldn't have accepted that order. Ariad frowned in deep thought. He thought the boy would blame himself upon learning of the betrayal or would cry out in outrage, but that wasn't the case. Crash suddenly turned around to face him. He raised a hand and proposed, Join my side. He was startled, wondering, has young Master Crash changed? The scene cuts to a library filled with neatly arranged books. Ariad glanced around, asking himself, why come to the study all of a sudden? At this moment, Crash reached out towards the nearby wall and called, Ariad, chop down this wall for me. He exclaimed in astonishment. What? He laughed. If you're a butler of the Valheim family, this should be easy enough, right? Ari hesitantly replied, Of course. Then he lightly lifted one foot. Ariad bent both knees and drew his sword. A surge of spiritual energy instantly radiated from the weapon. He swiftly delivered a few slashes, causing the wall to crack immediately. A moment later, it crumbled down, revealing a passageway leading inside. Crash let out an amazed "oh," adding, such a clean cut. Ariad couldn't help but be shocked. There's a secret passageway here. He walked ahead, praising, good job. He watched Crash's back thoughtfully, just as I thought. He is completely different from the person he was yesterday. Is he using a luminous pearl for lighting? He exudes an aura that reminds me of the family head. Just what exactly happened? Crash then widened his eyes, recalling an old memory. The last time he came here, everything had already burned to ashes. But this time Crash arrived just in time. Before that could happen, Ariad offered, Young Master, let me cut those chains. He glanced back to stop him. No, you won't be able to cut through these chains. Crash raised his hand, baring his teeth in a grin. How about I test my own strength this time? Black Hat's skill. His streams of aura immediately rushed toward the chains. They snapped them apart with absolute ease. A second later, Crash grabbed the padlock as Ariad watched in sheer amazement. He dropped it down, groaning inwardly. So heavy, the skill's power hasn't faded at all, huh? He asked curiously. Young Master, could it be that you formed a contract with a god? Hearing that, Crash's face darkened as he deduced. so I haven't formed a contract yet at this point in time. Then he spoke up, yeah, I just contracted with an unknown god. As for the library thing, feel free to report it to my father. Ariad stood frozen for a moment, momentarily not knowing what to do. He recalled how, just yesterday, the young master's eyes looked like someone who had lost his reason to exist. But in just one night he had changed thanks to a divine contract. He must have surely received an incredibly powerful skill. After all, he shares the same bloodline as Valheim's greatest genius. Even if he couldn't unleash a shedding, the current young master Crash might just. He nervously swallowed a gulp of saliva. Ariad called out, "Young master," making him glance backward. He placed a hand on his chest, assuring, "At least until you finish what you intend to do, I won't reveal this to anyone." Crash gloomily thought to himself, I see, this is exactly the downside of regression. Because my actions differ from the past, Ariad is also changing accordingly. But Ariad, a betrayer, will forever live in my memory. Did Arthur also endure this paradox, which is why he forced me to learn the regression skill? Ariad, if I cure his daughter's illness, he would probably swear loyalty to me, right? I should increase the number of usable chess pieces while living here. Crash suddenly turned around, waving his hand and saying, "Do whatever you want." Thinking inwardly, he'd figure out treating his daughter's illness later. Right now, the secret library is what I should prioritize. When the door was cracked open, a stream of red aura drifted out. Crash's pupils widened wildly right after. Instantly, a blast of fire shot straight toward the two of them. He couldn't help but feel terrified by the scene that just unfolded. Crash sensed that energy source, muttering, I didn't expect that after enduring so many world erosions I'd still feel terrified of this place. There's no mistaking it, that person's secret manual is definitely here. Not long after he noticed a thick book, found it. The secret library of the Blue Pine Pavilion. The ancestors who were considered failures of the Valheim clan. They had recorded all their techniques and memories. Not skills, but the culmination of humanity. And this is where the secret manuals for reaching the ultimate realm are kept. Initially, anyone could enter this place, but because of one single person, it became a secret library. That person was none other than Demeris Valheim. He was the worst failure in Valheim's history, but also the one who got swallowed by the world's erosion and then became the strongest. At this point, Crash forced a smile, slowly raising his arm. He placed his hand on the book, thinking to himself, sorry for arriving late, ancestors, but now it belongs to me. The secret manual left behind by that dreadful failure is a secret about to be revealed. That guy completely covered in blood red, revealing only stark white teeth, is Demeris Valheim. He was the most terrible failure in the history of the Valheim family, but at the same time, the strongest person to ever appear here when he was at the peak of his power. The image of Demeris fighting all alone appeared. The most powerful warriors in the world had challenged him. He wielded the power in his hands. It annihilated them all in the blink of an eye. Despite having many strong opponents, absolutely no one could stop him. On Demeris's body was a type of extreme blood poison, a toxic substance that had seeped into his bloodstream. Crash held the book in his hands and thought. He had fused the world's erosion into his body and possessed a crazy secret manual to control that power. He recalled the past when he couldn't get the complete set. Previously, half of the book was burned to ashes, so I never understood why Demaris ended up like that, and then he broke into an amused smile. Could it be that he went insane because he couldn't control the rampage of the erosion? Crash looked back on the past, thinking about how when he was attacked by the world erosion curse, he used the black hat to weaken it, and somehow he managed to endure it by balancing it out with other curses. He stared intently at the book, calculating inwardly if the same principle applies to the rampage of the extreme poison. On one side is a white snake, on the other is a black crow. Crash thought, and somehow I managed to endure it by balancing it out with other curses. Those two beasts merged together, creating a perfectly round sphere. He looked at it and used his skill, feeling smugly confident inside. I can also become as strong as Demeris. Krash called Ariod immediately replied. Yes, young master Krash. He commanded, from today on, make sure no one is allowed to enter the Blue Pine Pavilion. That is an order. He immediately obeyed. Yes, I understand. Ariod pushed up his glasses, feeling moved in his heart. The young master overlooked my mistake. I must repay this kindness. I will refuse Lord Balakin's offer, because my true master is young master Crash. In his room, Balakin furiously shouted, What did you just say? You refused my offer just because of that idiot? He continuously cursed. We can't let trash like him stay in the Valheim family. Damn bastard, those two known as the rare genius and the utter failure, they really drive me insane. Balakin recalled his thoughts from before. If it weren't for that girl's filthy blood, both Lilith and he would have kept their positions in the family line. He remembered Lilith's disgusted expression. Balakin gritted his teeth in frustration. He barked, "Hey!" A subordinate approached and asked, "Did you call for me, sir, Mr. Blokin?" The subordinate listened as Balakin ordered him to the Blue Pine Pavilion where Crash was staying immediately. Find out why that butler changed his mind. Investigate it thoroughly for me. The subordinate reported back, "But we cannot go inside, sir." Balakin was shocked. "What?" The subordinate replied, "Butler Ariad of young Master Crash has blockaded the entrance. He has forbidden everyone, including the family head, from setting foot in the Blue Pine Pavilion." Balakin frowned and growled, "Forbidden even the family head from entering." That while Crash was cultivating, he complained, "You've become too arrogant, you failure." On this side, he exhaled a breath. Crash circulated his energy and said excitedly, "I've finally reached the early stage of a Chi expert." He recited the Chi levels in his heart. There were many levels of Chi: Chi Emperor, Chi Master, Chi Expert, Beginner Chi. The early stage is Beginner Chi, which is the state of just learning how to use Chi. Crash thought the second stage is Chi Expert, which is the level most people reach and is also the boundary that distinguishes ordinary people from geniuses. He admired that he had only reached the realm of an ordinary person, while that body, only 2 years older than him, was already a Chi Master. Her talent was truly amazing. But Crash remembered the image of her collapsing. Even Charlotte, a monstrous anomaly, was powerless. Charlotte's weary, despondent face appeared before the destruction. He mused he was still just an amateur. Crash sadly wondered if he could save the world at this pace. But his adult self spoke up, "You won't know if you don't try." His adult self said that whining was useless. From the beginning, they couldn't use Chi before turning back time because of the curse. But now it was different, the scene of her standing under the radiant sun, even if she couldn't compare to that body. Looking at the book on the table, Crash thought, but he could still develop if he grasped the secret techniques left behind by that failure. Both his adult self and his younger self were determined. The magical power in his body was overflowing. He could become stronger. This is enough for now. He walked over with a towel and kindly called out, "Young Master, congratulations on reaching the early stage of the expert realm." Crash took the towel and replied, "It's not worth mentioning." He wiped himself and asked, "More importantly, why are you waiting in a place like this?" Ariad immediately replied respectfully, "Your fiancée, Lady Bianca Hardenhearts, has arrived at the Blue Pine Pavilion, sir." Crash was surprised when he heard this name, and immediately associated it with the future Bianca. The White Demon, Bianca. He remembered her appearance on the battlefield. Although she was a leader, she had become a pawn for those who sought to seize and destroy this world. She was also the person who defeated one of the 10 great heavenly armies to win the title of White Demon. Crash looked down from the window. Although she was currently just the youngest daughter of the Hardenhearts family. At this moment, the little girl was standing at the gate waiting for the political marriage. He thought about the marriage alliance even though she was currently only the youngest daughter of the Hardenhearts family. The Valheim family would have a chance to get rid of the useless failure, and the Hardenhearts family would become the Lords of the North and become close with the most powerful martial clan. Crash scoffed at himself. Both of us are being used by our families. Bianca is waiting below, Crash said. Actually, I also have business with Bianca. I didn't expect her to come here herself. He thought of her past, Bianca Hardenhearts, the youngest daughter of the Hardenhearts family, Lords of the North. Because her mother was affected by the world-eroding curse before she was born. From the moment she was born, she had no emotions. The image of an emotionless newborn appeared. The lightning origin had deeply rooted itself into her soul and could not be broken by exorcism. And with a polluted body, she could not enter into a contract with the gods. He mused, she was also considered a cursed child, born by sacrificing her mother's life. The scene of her being all alone appeared, so Bianca was treated coldly by the Hardenhearts family. Crash wondered, does Bianca hate me? He calculated in his heart that as long as it didn't hinder stealing Bianca's curse, it would be fine. Because the snow doll was the necessary curse to control the hysteria when extreme poison seeped into the blood. Crash turned and asked, "Dressing like this probably isn't appropriate to go out, is it?" He understood and replied, I will immediately prepare clothes for you to change into. He said, yeah, thanks. Crash ordered, invite her inside and tell her to wait for me for a moment. Crash brushed Bianca away years ago. He grumbled, get lost. You only care about the power of the Valheim family. So stop pretending to be my fiancé. She still stood emotionlessly watching. At this moment, Bianca stood alone in the large room. She exhaled and said, I didn't even want to come here. Bianca thought about what they told her. Daughter, the only way for the Hardenhearts family to exist is to rely on the Valheim house. Anyway, you have a pretty face, you will definitely win the affection of the young Valheim master. He patted her shoulder, Bianca. Bianca touched her shoulder, remembering the fate of the Hardenhearts family placed on her shoulders. She thought that even though she had no emotions, she could still tell right from wrong. Bianca remembered Crash's arrogant appearance, thinking to herself that if she weren't forced into this political marriage by her family, a guy who often cursed was pessimistic and a failure like him. She rubbed her shoulder. Bianca loathed him in her heart. He was the type of person she would definitely reject. A moment later, Crash panicked. Oh no. He smiled awkwardly and said, I didn't expect them to serve such hot tea to someone with a sensitive palate like you. I will remind the servants later, just leave it here for now. Bianca still watched him emotionlessly, looking out into the garden and suggesting, the weather is beautiful today, let's go for a walk in the garden. There must be many flowers there that don't grow in the north. She agreed. Crash said, Ariad, bring some macadamia cookies to the garden. Ariad obeyed. Yes, young master. As they walked, he started a conversation. Bianca, it must have been very difficult for you to get here. She replied coldly. Since we are engaged, meetings like this are quite necessary. Crash asked, is that so? He smiled and said, and yet, I get the feeling that you're talking to your fiancé, but the tone sounds like you're talking to a superior rather than a lover, doesn't it? Bianca looked at Crash's expression and compared it to the person she met last time, and she discovered. The last time they met, his eyes were as cold as a knife, but today it was completely different. Moreover, she had never revealed to him that she liked macadamia cookies. Out in the garden, he enjoyed the peace. She called out, sir, and Bianca asked directly, are you really Crash? She fell silent after asking. Crash also remained silent for a while. Then he touched his head, radiated a bit of killing intent, and said, am I that different from before? Bianca sensed the killing intent. She nodded and expressed, I'm sorry, Mr. Crash, it's my fault for being too much. Crash lamented, damn it, that's not what I meant. He tried to recall the memories, but his memories of this time were so faint that he couldn't remember how he had treated Bianca before. But the only thing he remembered clearly was, he looked at Bianca, this very expression of Bianca quotas. Remembering the moment she was about to leave before, she had the exact same look that day when she collapsed in front of the North Sea ice villa. Crash reluctantly put it aside, just play along for now. He joked, you can't be blamed for being suspicious. Bianca, I recently signed a contract with a god. She naively believed him and thought, so that's why your personality changed. Bianca congratulated him. Congratulations, Mr. Crash. He spoke up. In that case, I have a proposal for you, she asked. A proposal? Bianca speculated. Young Master Crash, someone willing to enter a contract with a god has a proposal for me, she wondered. Could it be an annulment? Krash hurriedly denied. Why would you think that? He explained, I mean, if you don't want to marry someone like me, if you want to break off the engagement, then please do so. Bianca mused. He's belittling himself again, even though he carries the Valheim blood. Why is Mr. Crash so insecure? She exhaled a breath. Bianca firmly asserted, I will be your fiancé, Mr. Crash, that will not change. Krash blushed and wondered in his heart. How long has it been since I heard such honest words? He regained his composure and said, I see, well, let's get to the main business, with my newly awakened abilities. Krash reached out his hand and proposed, do you want to hand over the curse that even expert breakers have given up on to me? She was surprised and skeptical. Is he saying he wants to take on that unbreakable curse? Without hesitation, Bianca confirmed, you mean you want to take on that curse? He immediately answered, yes, I need to use it. If you agree to hand it over, I will grant any one wish for you, even if it's destruction. She analyzed that this was a situation where her emotionless curse actually became beneficial to her. I know Crash is considered a failure. If so, he would definitely have conflicts with the main line. Bianca imagined Crash becoming emotionless. Perhaps because he was so tired, that's why he became like that. So tired that he wanted to completely erase his emotions. She didn't answer immediately because she was busy speculating. Is this a psychological illness? Bianca remembered a psychological mage who once told her that when people reach their mental limit, they collapse from a sickness of the heart. That person pointed to a mental health book and told her that once they get sick, they might end their own lives or suddenly become gentle as if they were a completely different person. Bianca thought about the advice that person gave her. That is an extremely dangerous moment. Those signs are the signals foretelling the outcome. Bianca, if someone close to you is falling into that situation. She took Krash hand and followed the advice. Stay by their side. Bianca comforted him. It will be okay. I know you can overcome it. Crash, you can control your emotions without relying on the curse. He was shy. Bianca, it seems there is some misunderstanding here. She suddenly became unusually gentle. From now on, I will visit you often. If I ask my father, I could even move to live near here to be closer to you. Crash felt something was wrong and panicked. Why did you suddenly say that? Wait, don't you hate me? You don't really want this engagement, do you? Bianca said, even if that were so, I could not abandon someone standing on the brink of difficulty. He wondered. She didn't deny it. Looking into her eyes, Crash thought he understood Bianca was the type of person who, once she decided on something, would dive right in, but he felt like she was seriously misunderstanding this. He calculated that if he couldn't get the curse, maybe he should try activating the skill in secret. Crash immediately cast the Black Hat skill on Bianca. He circulated his energy. It grew larger in Krash's hand. He saw a padlock creating conditions for unlocking. The system board presented condition 1. Become Bianca's friend. Crash thought with interest, a double lock, that's troublesome. Because this was a curse she had carried since birth, it was considered a part of her body and had been assigned a value. Although the curse didn't originally produce a lock, he looked at the cold expression on her face and sighed to himself. This was even harder than becoming her fiancé. Bianca had no emotions, so she rarely showed interest in anything. Krash calculated that, even so, sending her back to the Hardnharts would only make the moment she turned into the white demon come sooner. He would keep Bianca by his side and wait for the opportunity to unlock it. If he could prevent her from turning into the white demon and also seize the snow doll, then it would be killing two birds with one stone. He took Bianca's hand and pretended, that makes me very happy. I am very grateful to be able to meet my fiancé so often. She promised, I will confirm with my father in return. Bianca said goodbye, see you later. Crash watched her go and thought, since it will be another month before she returns here, I will take the opportunity to read as many magic books as possible. Everything is about to get busy. The next morning at Green Pine Villa, the familiar carriage arrived. Each wooden crate was unloaded. Suddenly a greeting rang out, hello Mr. Crash. She stepped out and added, starting today, I will live at Green Pine Villa, I hope for your care. He panicked in his heart, she intends to live here with me. Crash opened his eyes. What hit his eyes was Bianca's fair face fast asleep. He quickly sat up. Bianca, is she sleeping in this spot again? He scratched his head and let out a long yawn. Other people seeing us like this would misunderstand. She had also woken up by now, dreamily looking at him. Good morning, Mr. Crash, but why are you here? Crash, hearing her ask that, became angry. I should be the one asking that, Bianca. After waking up, Crash sat in meditation to improve his strength, sweat already dripping all over his body. Crash thought, thinking back carefully, several months had passed since he started living with Bianca. He thought back to the time she stood in front of him and said she would live with him. At that time, Crash was extremely surprised. His eyes opened wide, showing clear astonishment on his face. Crash was confused. You've moved in for good, Bianca quickly replied. Yes, there is no obstacle at all, my family agreed immediately. Crash was a little worried. He thought to himself, does that mean when you have to be away from home like that, are you okay? You're only 12 years old, right? Perhaps because Bianca had no emotions, her connection to her family was also loose, and she didn't really understand those feelings. Well, perhaps that's for the best because I want to be friends with her. Crash saw Bianca following him around like the relationship between a mother hen and her chick. He was still sitting and cultivating his strength, holding a long black sword in his hand. That happened in the summer. Now it was winter and this year was also coming to an end. That means the opening day of the Yahello Academy is coming soon. The Yahello Academy was established from the cooperation between the four great kingdoms and the empire to train talents who can fight against world erosion, only accepting students from 15 to 20 years old. Before he turned back to the past, this place had trained countless members of the Azure generation, Many of them even possessed high-level skills. The more Crash thought about it, the angrier he became. He gritted his teeth, his jaw clenching tightly because of those bastards. He clenched his fist. I understand their weaknesses better than anyone else. I can easily seize their skills. Once I enroll in the academy, I'll systematically rob every one of them dry. Next year, he will be 14 years old. That means he has about a year to prepare. Crash needs to become stronger before that time comes, but his talent has already started reaching its limit. Crash slowly lifted the jet black sword. He gritted his teeth. These magic books can only get me to the beginner level of an aura expert. To overcome this limit, I must seize Bianca's snow doll curse as soon as possible and learn how to use the extreme blood infusion technique. Crash opened the room door and saw her sitting in a chair reading a book. Bianca, are you waiting for me again today? Bianca carried her book and followed him closely. Yes, I cannot leave you alone, Crash, he thought to himself as he walked. From summer until now, Bianca has been sticking to him like a shadow. Wherever he goes, he sees her following him. Is she planning to follow me into the bathroom too? Is there something wrong with her? Crash frustratedly ran a hand through his hair. How long will it be until Bianca truly considers me a friend? Do you want to go out for a stroll? Suddenly Ariad stepped forward. Young master, there is an invitation from the Star Temple. Crash stood still upon hearing that. The Star Temple. The Star Temple is a formal annual party held for the young nobles of the Starland Kingdom. Almost everyone attends. Except for special cases, this is an occasion for socializing and building relationships. He held the invitation in his hand. Ah, I remember now, thanks for the reminder, Ariod. Crash was lost in thought. Before returning to the past, I had locked myself in the Blue Pine Pavilion Hall, so my memories of this event are quite hazy. He shifted his gaze away from the invitation card. That guy will definitely be there too. I should go to keep my promise to Ariod. That way, he won't have an excuse to do things like he did last time. Crash handed the invitation to Ariod. Tell them I will attend. Bianca slowly approached and whispered in his ear, I'm going too. Crash immediately understood and passed the message to Ariod. Bianca says she will go with me. He replied with a nod and quickly left. Bianca looked at Crash. Those attending the Star Temple will definitely criticize you. He placed his hands on his hips. Yeah, but who knows what they will say about you too. Maybe it's better if you don't go. Bianca's expression was determined. She placed a hand on her chest. No, I will go with you. Crash said, protecting one's fiancé is a fiancé's responsibility after all. Saying that, he gently placed his hand on Bianca's head to pat her hair. I'm not asking as your fiancé, I just want to hear your honest opinion, Bianca. She looked at him slowly, then thought to herself, that pitying look again. For the past few months, Crash had treated her with inexplicable kindness. Crash asked Bianca with concern, what do you want to eat for breakfast? And sometimes he would hold her hand, let's go choose the next book in the study together. When the two were in the garden, Crash covered her with a blanket while she was sleeping. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere, sleep a little more. Bianca dreamily opened her eyes, so warm. In the Hardenhearts family, no one had ever been that gentle with her. At that time, Bianca was sitting obediently under the tree watching Crash practice swordsmanship. Crash was so kind that she almost forgot about the terrible first meeting between them, so she no longer hated Crash. Bianca still kept her determined expression. I will go with you. Not as your fiancé, but as myself, that is my honest feeling. Crash was slightly surprised to see her like that. His cheeks turned pink. Crash was satisfied, the corner of his lips curling slightly. I understand. They rode in a carriage amidst the warm and peaceful sunset. The sun was shining gently, the atmosphere was extremely pleasant. Crash looked out the window. So this is Garu, it really is the most famous place in the region. Did they rent the whole venue? Just how rich are they? The reason the nobility in this world is respected is that they fight against world erosion on behalf of commoners. Yet those fools don't even bother to train. They only know how to party all night long, and they are called the future of Starland. Crash and Bianca walked into the sanctuary together. He looked around, wondering how many decent people were left in that glittering sanctuary. An announcement echoed. Lord Crash Valheim and Lady Bianca Hardenhearts have arrived. When everyone saw the two of them appear, there were whispers and gossip. Crash, that failure of a son from the Valheim clan, and the girl with the curse from the powerful northern family. What a match made in heaven. Rumor has it they are already engaged. Don't stare so hard. If you don't want to get cursed, then don't make contact with her. Crash glanced at everyone and thought, constantly surrounded by fake nobles. Balak Hogma laughed. Valheim looks like an interesting character has appeared. Crash looked toward where the voice originated, but there were still true nobles here. Those who would later join the Azure generation. Balak Hogma, the Tiger Youth, the Wicked Latin Emilia, and the Wooden Bow Annex Greiser. These three were later known as the Starlon Trio. To avoid further trouble, he quickly turned away. Those three were already noticing him. It's probably because of Charlotte. He thought about what she said. Listen, Crash, that day I wore a dress like this, people kept running up to start conversations endlessly, but none of them could beat me in a duel. Star Temple, I think it should be called the Trash Temple instead. Charlotte looked at Crash, who was fearfully huddled under the blanket. Boring, I swear I'll never set foot there again. Back then, that was how Charlotte boasted. Crash was a bit speechless, just looking at the atmosphere here was enough to tell. She must have caused a scene already. Suddenly Bianca tugged lightly on his sleeve. Lord Crash, don't pay attention to what others say. Crash was stunned. I was just thinking about Charlotte. He thought she was insulted like that, and yet she doesn't hold a grudge, and she's even worried about me. Crash patted Bianca's head. I don't mind at all. Crash turned his head, scanning the room. But when will he appear? Don't tell me he isn't coming. Another announcement echoed. Lord Darling Danforlean has arrived. Crash silently exclaimed, speak of the devil and he shall appear. The weirdest one among the nobles. Darling smiled and winked. Greetings, everyone. This is the alchemist, department head Darling Danforlean. A voice of exclamation echoed. Oh my, your whole body is covered in curses. What made you end up in such a terrible state? Two tiny hands reached up high. The blonde-haired boy patted Crash's face. With the corrosive curse, combining this and this together might actually work, seems feasible. He excitedly asked, hey, are you interested in being my test subject? I will cure you. Without letting Crash say a word, he continued, hey, do you not have the energy to answer? His face was filled with excitement, so I'll just start on my own. Crash's eyes suddenly widened. Crash. Darling's small face approached, making him panic. Stop. He angrily scolded. Are you crazy? Get away from me. That guy is the Lord of the Alchemy Castle, Darling Danferlion. That was the first time I met the person who would later be known as the Alchemist King, the best in the world. Currently, Darling is happily running around the party greeting everyone. Everyone whispered noisily, Lord Darling is excellent again today. Is that the freak Darling? He arrived late on purpose to get attention, right? Seeing this, Crash sighed helplessly. Well, people who like to get attention will naturally appear where people of the same age are gathered. Saying that, he turned around and called to Bianca, wait for me here. She obediently listened, yes. Then Crash walked over to Darling, making him wonder, who is that guy? I have a feeling I've met him somewhere before. Crash approached to introduce himself. Krashvalheim. Hearing that, Darling vaguely remembered. Valheim, he really looks like Charlotte. His eyes brightened. You are Charlotte's younger brother, right? Do you have something you want to tell me, or is my appearance attractive to you? Crash lowered his voice to speak. It seems you've been digging up information about world erosion recently. This sentence made Darling stiffen. Crash's expression became sly. I wonder if saying that makes you more interested in me. Darling smirked. You are indeed a provocative brat. Since you've piqued my curiosity, prepare yourself. Saying that, the two arrived before a door. Please do not enter. Darling went inside and asked, so Crash, how old are you now? His hand reached for two swords. Crash replied, 13, but does age matter that much? Darling smiled sarcastically. 13, you look really young, but your aura is completely different. In his head, Crash sighed. Well, inside I'm an adult who has already graduated from the academy, so that's why. He replied out loud. I don't have much time. If possible, I want to get straight to the main point. Darling happily agreed. Go ahead. He threw a sword to Crash. Here, catch. Suddenly Crash's eyes widened in shock. He quickly blocked the sword that Darling was swinging at him. Crash was confused. What the hell are you doing, Darling Danforlean? He laughed amusedly. Since it's my first time meeting Charlotte's brother, I just wanted to test your skills first. Krashanoyedly thought to himself. What an annoying guy. Darling swung forward, adding, didn't you say you had something to discuss? I'm listening, go ahead. He parried the attack and replied, about that. Finishing his sentence, Crash strongly knocked his sword away. Darling was slightly surprised. Aren't you supposed to be a failure with no skills? Crash tried to fight back. Even though I look like this, I train every day. Tough. Should I use a secret technique to deal with an alchemist, or should I shock him a bit? Thinking that, he lowered his voice to speak. The research on neutralizing the curse, I can help you with that. This sentence shocked Darling. What? He became angry. What do you know about alchemy that makes you dare to say you'll cooperate with me? Crash's eyes became focused. His foot rotated forward in a circle. On this side, Darling raised his sword high with disdain. Krash quickly fought back, combining it with an explanation. The research on neutralizing the curse. Something that the dispelling mages still haven't been able to break by using another curse. To become a first-rate alchemist, you have to prove that research, right? Darling let out a sigh of relief. Krash promised, I will help you with the research. He reached his hand forward with his curse-stealing skill. This made Darling stunned. Isn't he supposed to be an incompetent failure? A second later, he broke into a compromised smile. If what Crash said was true, this really is the perfect opportunity to help his curse neutralization research. Darling tapped his chest. What should I do to repay you? He teased, be my boyfriend, for example. Crash helplessly yelled, what the hell are you talking about? I will collect many curses in the future. I want you to create medicine to alleviate those curses. Darling laughed excitedly. Mixing medicine is my specialty. Crash thought to himself that if he only had the skill-stealing technique, it wouldn't be enough. Even the generation of those who could use extraordinary skills couldn't stop the destruction. Crash felt inferior. A failure like me has to use every possible means, whether it's medicine or anything else. Witnessing this expression, Darling marveled. I heard he lost his motivation because of being constantly compared to Charlotte, but it seems that's not the case. A genius who overwhelms and one who is destroyed. Both of the siblings in that family thought to this point. Darling couldn't help but tremble with excitement. He wondered, can I ask one thing? Crash continued, what is it? Darling asked, do you intend to go to the upcoming Yahello Academy? Hearing that, Crash smiled sinisterly. Of course I do. This made Darling even more excited. There are tons of skills for me to steal at the academy. He waved his hands and cheered. Then that's settled. I'll do anything, mixing medicine or anything else. If it's related to curses, I'm always welcoming. Of course, the position for me is open too, right? Crash was speechless. This guy hasn't changed at all, before or after it's the same. Suddenly, he remembered something. But besides that, I also want to ask one more thing. Crash interrogated, you know about the discoloration disease, right? Darling explained. It's the terminal illness that turns skin blue-black and eventually leads to death. Crash ordered, create a cure for that disease, making his face stiffen. Darling hurriedly justified, don't you know what a terminal illness means? Even for me, that is impossible. Crash felt guilty. Even so, you will finish it later anyway. That was a story of a distant future. Crash sighed in frustration. He reached his hand forward. Crash encouraged, you can do it. Darling smiled wryly. Hearing you say that, it touches my pride. Afterward, the two high-fived. Krash instructed, when the medicine is ready, remember to contact the Blue Pine Pavilion. Darling agreed. I will personally bring it to you. Suddenly, Crash's expression darkened. I've been wondering about this for a long time. He asked directly, you like my sister, right? Darling cheered happily. I love Charlotte very much. Seeing that, Crash was confused. Then why did you say earlier that the seat next to you was still empty and mentioned a boyfriend or something? Darling feigned ignorance. What are you talking about? Crash, you're still young, so maybe you don't understand. I also like boys. I can love both men and women. This statement directly gave Crash goosebumps. He ran far away, but Darling spread his arms and called out, hey, wait, future lover. Crash returned to the main hall, still whispering, so he's that kind of person. Right at this moment, there was a noisy crowd in front looking at something. Crash's face instinctively darkened. On the other side, a man was grabbing Bianca Quota's hand. Her arm was being grabbed until it was red and sore. Bianca called out softly, Lord Crash. Immediately he appeared, delivering a strike. That guy was sent flying far away. The guy sat up with a headache, and Crash was already standing in front of him. His voice was cold as he questioned, dare to force my fiancé, what do you want, huh? The guy who was hit held his face in fear and asked, force. He frowned angrily, you are deliberately touching a 12-year-old child. Veins popped out on his forehead as he stepped forward. Do you have such weird hobbies, you piece of trash? He fearfully explained, it's not like that. He fearfully told the truth, I'm just following the second princess's orders. Crash was extremely surprised. It's the second princess's order. He looked down and said a name, Gladius Starlon. That guy heard the name and replied, that's right, the second princess ordered me to bring Lady Bianca to meet her, but Lady Bianca wouldn't agree. Although I didn't want to drag her like that, it was a royal order, I had no choice. Crash glanced at Bianca, who was rubbing her wrist. Bianca, she is the youngest daughter of the Hardenhearts family, a northern princess. But because of that curse, Bianca's reputation among the nobility is very low. He couldn't help but be suspicious. Why would a princess, an admirable person, desperately summon her like that? He placed his hand on his chin and thought, something is not right. Crash thought to himself, could it be? He had a slight doubt in his heart. Is there any other connection? The image of Anix suddenly flashed in his mind. He clenched his fists in anger. Anix! He thought to himself that his sister had once obsessively stalked her. Crash recalled that after Anix was defeated at the Holy Sanctuary of Stars, although she hated Charlotte, she couldn't abandon her admiration, and in the end, she became twisted. He immediately pieced together the entire sequence of events that had occurred. When she couldn't defeat Charlotte with her own strength, she began to shift her target to him, Charlotte's younger brother. Having understood everything, Crash exhaled a breath, his whole body radiating killing intent as he questioned, and now you're dragging Bianca into this mess too. He then compromised, fine, I'll go. He was extremely surprised to hear this. He continued, but instead of meeting the second princess, I'll meet Anix. He asked in surprise, Sir Anix, why? Crash pulled Bianca along and replied coldly, even though you serve the princess, I don't know who ordered you. Do they have any connection? Honestly, you've even picked up the bad habits of your master. He took Bianca's hand. Let's go, Bianca, she replied gently. Yes, Mr. Crash. The two of them held hands as they walked down the palace corridor. Crash looked at her with some curiosity. By the way, Bianca, why did she refuse to come to the meeting? He thought to himself, I can guess the culprit since I've been through this before. But I was extremely surprised that BIANCA refused the princess's invitation. But at 12 years old, BIANCA shouldn't have been able to grasp the situation yet, so why did she ignore the princess's order? Krash turned and called out, BIANCA, she replied softly. Yes. He asked suspiciously, why didn't you follow the princess's order? Bianca lowered her face and replied, because Mr. Crash told me to wait. Hearing these words from her, he was extremely surprised. Crash smiled faintly with satisfaction. He reached out and patted BIANCA Quote's head in praise. Well done. The two of them walked to Anix's office. Balakhogma saw him and let out an "oh." He walked over and exclaimed, oh my, you really came. Crash replied coldly, I came to see Anix. He smiled and pointed into the room, replying, that's right. Anix told me to let Mr. Crash in as soon as he arrived. He frowned, thinking to himself, this is Balakhogma. He wondered suspiciously, why did I ever think he was a skilled dual-wielding swordsman, and where did it all start going wrong? Crash reached out to open the door. Fortunately, Balakhogma ordered him to help. Balakhogma stood behind and said, then this. He leaned close to his face and proposed, I'm curious about you too, Crash, let's have a match. Crash sighed inwardly. In the end, it turned out like this. He refused. Fighting is forbidden in the Holy Sanctuary of Stars. He lunged forward and replied, but you already fought Charlotte, so would it be okay with you too? You're weaker than Charlotte anyway. He glanced at him and thought, come to think of it, I heard that when he fought Charlotte he lasted longer than Abarax. Crash observed him, evaluating that although both were experts, Abarax's level was slightly higher. But his combat senses were so unpredictable that his opponents couldn't guess his next sword strike. He frowned slightly. Before meeting Anix, I wanted to avoid fighting this guy. When he looked into Balakhogma's eyes, he thought, but looking at his eyes, it seems he won't give up easily. Crash clenched his hand into a fist and replied, fine. After receiving his agreement, he immediately launched an attack toward him. The very next second he countered, and he easily somersaulted to dodge the attack. Crash stepped back slightly. Immediately after, he jumped straight at Balakhogma. His gaze was icy cold as he launched an attack toward him. Crash immediately punched hard into his stomach, a 1-inch punch. After the punch was delivered, he clutched his stomach in pain. The match ended and he let out a sharp breath. Balakhogma clutched his stomach and reproached, Krash, you're really cruel. Crash rubbed his neck and replied, you were the one who challenged me first. He reached out his hand and said, yeah, but wait, can I go get my weapon first? He asked in surprise. Weapon? Crash said coldly, more importantly, can you even stand up right now? Balakhogma smiled, but blood was already streaming from his nose. And the very next second he fainted. He saw that he had collapsed and was slightly surprised. Bianca curiously asked, Crash, what exactly did you do to him? Crash replied coldly, I used a secret technique from the Valheim family. He recalled the 1-inch punch. Long ago, a failure of the Valheim family created this move. It is a masterpiece that maximizes damage over the shortest distance. He thought to himself that before returning to the past, this was the only move that helped him get saved while the Blue Pine Pavilion was burning. Thanks to this 1-inch punch, he had survived countless life-or-death situations. Returning to reality, Krash looked at his hand and continued. I used my strongest move, so he surely won't be able to get up for a while. He looked at Balak Hogma, who was unconscious on the floor. Let's carry him inside, Bianca replied. Yes, Mr. Krash. The two of them pushed the door open. In front of them stood Anix and another woman. When she saw Balak Hogma lying on the ground, she ran toward him. Anix spoke in an ironic tone. It's really funny that you actually defeated Balak Hogma. Krash sighed and replied, after all, you only used the second princess just to lure me here. He pointed behind him and said coldly, isn't that why you were already standing here waiting? Now I've arrived. He laughed and rubbed his chin. How did you realize that? Strange, you're different from what I heard. Perhaps the rumors are false. Krash's voice was extremely cold. You were the one spreading rumors that I'm a failure, weren't you? He reached out and rubbed his shoulder. However, if you lose to me today, he smiled, then the rumors will change a bit from now on. Krash performed his technique and growled, because I'm going to steal your skill. Krash crossed his arms, his voice full of irony. If the rumors say I'm a failure, then that's the truth. But if you are defeated by me today, those rumors might change a little, right? Anix bowed his head in silence, saying nothing. Krash observed him slightly. Anix Greiser, he recalled images from the future. You were an old friend of mine. He thought to himself that because we have been together for so long, I understand you very well. He asked, running away without a plan, for instance, the truth is that you only befriended me because I was useful to you. Krash told himself, and that usefulness caused a surge of bitterness in his heart. It's the worst reason for you to betray me. At that time, on the edge of the cliff, he gripped the edge of the rock tightly and looked down, swearing under his breath. Damn it, has everyone been taken down? He called out, Anix, are you there? Help me. Anix stood above and spoke. Krash. He asked coldly, if they find out that falling into the trap was my fault, I will definitely lose my position in the Azure generation, right? He continued, but if I survive alone, no one will ever know. Krash yelled angrily, hey, do you think it's that easy? Internal conflict is already fierce enough. You will definitely be kicked out because of this incident. He broke into a wicked smile. Immediately after, Anix laughed. It doesn't matter, I'll pin all the blame on you. He was extremely pleased with himself. Because you are hated by everyone around you, they will believe my words, and so the truth of this matter will be buried. He smiled, thanks Krash for being my friend until the very end. Krash widened his eyes in surprise. Friend? He questioned angrily. Don't mess with me. Have you ever considered me a friend even once? He looked at Anix with an angry gaze. You only stayed by my side from the beginning because you were chasing Charlotte. And today you were distracted all day just because Charlotte is about to get married. Is that why we ended up in this situation? Anix darkened and replied, that is exactly why I hate you. His face was filled with disgust. You have no talent, but your intuition is sharp and you always try to harm me. That part is your fault. He turned and left. Since Charlotte is about to get married, this relationship also ends here. Anix rubbed his chin. But perhaps this is the best thing, right? He laughed with interest. I guess Charlotte wouldn't want to hold a funeral at the same time as her wedding, would she? Krash heard these words of his and angrily cursed. You piece of trash. He couldn't hold on any longer and fell. My strength. He mocked himself. Is this how I end up? Just then, Arthur grabbed his hand tightly and asked, are you okay? Krash thought to himself that Arthur had saved him back then with the excuse that they were on the same team, even though that was the beginning of a new tragedy. He cast his eyes toward Anix, thinking, anyway, after Anix was kicked out of the Azure generation because of Arthur's testimony, I went crazy when he tried to marry the princess out of desperation. But what about now? Anix laughed and teased, Krash, your face and way of speaking are very much like Charlotte's. He heard that and gritted his teeth in anger. This guy still hasn't changed at all. Krash clenched his fist, his voice full of anger. Hey, don't call her name so casually. You say she and I are alike. He performed a technique. He lunged to attack. That's right, just like her, I am the type of person who never backs down from a battle. Anix watched him calmly. He lunged and threw a punch, but the punch was blocked by a branch. Krash pressed his hand into the branch. Krash spun his body in midair. Immediately after, he stepped onto the branch. Suddenly, another branch reached out and tightly coiled around his leg. It pulled him into midair. It quickly brought him to Bianca Quotas location. Krash landed on the ground. He thought to himself, sure enough, it's really annoying. Anix looked at him and mocked, is that all? You'd better use a weapon. Greiser family secret technique, wood-style ground destruction art. A special technique that uses aura to strengthen plants and control them at will. By using recovery skills to propagate plants, one can compensate for the limitations of this technique. Crash reached out to summon his weapon. You want me to use a weapon? He stood up and pointed his staff toward Anix. Then I will use your own wood to face you. A vein bulged on his forehead as he asked, really? He controlled the staff and lunged it toward Crash. Then try blocking this with that branch. He nimbly dodged Anix's attacks. He saw that and was extremely surprised. He dodged it. His gaze was full of killing intent as he looked toward him. He smiled and said, "To you, I'm no different from a natural enemy," he thought to himself, "because I already saw through your abilities until I was sick of it before regressing." He lunged and called his name. Anix. Crash growled, "Are you thinking about Charlotte again?" Anix clicked his tongue and he replied coldly, "That's because I'm silently listening." He reached out and summoned a plant monster. He was pushed backward by its pressure. He growled in threat, "Crash, you should watch your words. Wood-style ground destruction art, 5th move." Anix raised his hand and performed the technique. Wood-style earth and sky giant. He smiled wickedly, "From now on, be careful." Suddenly, Mary rushed in from the door and yelled, "Sir Anix, you cannot do that." His gaze became icy. If that blow hit Crash directly, the giant would launch an attack toward him, and the consequences would be irreversible. Crash closed his eyes slightly. Among the books in the secret library of the Blue Pine Villa, there was a thin scroll. Its author was an ancestor who swung his sword continuously until he was 80. He had no talent, he was just a person who repeated mediocre practice swings every day. The secret manual written in his final years was very short, recording only his practice swings. However, because it was due to the curse, I had also been cornered into a similar situation countless times. So he thought to himself, I have understood the ancestor's secret technique. In his heart he recited, "The sword is me and I become the sword." He raised the staff into the air. Immediately after, he slashed down hard at the giant. In his heart he whispered, "I just need to consider this a sword, it's a very simple truth." The giant was sliced in two by Crash's single slash. Mary looked at this scene in absolute astonishment. Anix also couldn't hide his terror. From within the smoke, Crash spoke up, "Hey." He threw the stick to the ground. "Never act arrogant again," he gritted out, "understand." Crash felt frustrated with himself. Damn it, I've messed up the pre-planned strategy. I intended to conserve just enough strength to easily steal the skill, but since I put everything into that one strike, I can't even move now. That took a lot out of Crash. Damn it, I can't even catch my breath to speak. Bianca stepped closer to him, offering, "Crash, let me help you." Darling saw Bianca's way of helping and stepped in to bail him out. "At this rate, Crash is going to die. Leave it to me." Bianca handed Crash over to him. "I'll leave him to you." The people present gossiped incessantly, noisy. "What's this? That failure actually defeated Anix, no way. The useless youngest son of the Valheim family." Darling had to admire their news sensitivity. Oh my, rumors really do spread fast. He looked at the scratched-up Crash and thought, I didn't expect it to spread this quickly. This kid will probably be a star by the time he wakes up. But Darling discovered something strange. But hey, he was bothered by that face. "Anix's expression just now makes me feel uneasy," Darling muttered to himself. "I have a gut feeling that something bad is about to happen." Darling said to Crash even though he was unconscious, "Hey kid, you aren't allowed to die until you partner with me on research. Is that clear?" Currently Crash is training. A week had passed since returning from the Star Temple, and he was finally able to feel somewhat at ease. "I've finally recovered from that fight." Crash recalled the battle at that time. "If I had kept pushing him until the end, I would have ended up worse than Anix." He had collapsed right onto Bianca Quote's lap. "I lost consciousness in the carriage." Crash felt a bit regretful. If only I hadn't passed out, I would have at least had time to prepare to steal his skill. Crash sank into his own thoughts. I have two ways to steal skills. One is the normal method of opening the black hat, and the second is causing the opponent to underestimate their own skills. With Anix, I intended to use the second method. This method is easy to execute if you completely overwhelm your opponent. Since the Earthwood giant was defeated in just one blow, Anix's doubt about the value of that skill will certainly spread. Crash's skill has many conditions for use. If he is defeated by a failure he looks down upon, he will start to doubt the value of his own skill. Crash confidently asserted, "Even though it takes a bit of time, Anix's recovery skill will eventually belong to me." He made a plan for himself. Therefore, in the remaining year before entering the academy, I want to spend every day training to surpass those geniuses. But Ariod entered respectfully, young Master Krash. He informed Crash, Lord Balakin has arrived at the Blue Pine Pavilion. Crash laughed, replying, I guess Balakin lost his patience. Ariod added, I turned down his messages 22 times, it couldn't be delayed any longer. Crash reluctantly accepted. Invite him in. He swiftly obeyed, as you wish. Bianca walked over holding a glass of water. Crash, please drink some water. He took the glass. Ah, thanks. Seeing her slightly avoid him, Crash asked, what's the matter? Bianca honestly said while pointing at his body, you're sweating, it smells. Crash hadn't noticed and didn't realize. Huh, really? He hurriedly pulled his shirt up to smell it. Maybe it's the waste products released when using aura. But he couldn't feel it, Crash wondered. Or maybe my nose is numb from getting used to the smell of erosion. Bianca unexpectedly asked back, didn't you bathe before meeting Lord Balakin? Crash rejected that. No, I'll probably have to exercise more. Hearing that, Bianca moved far away from him. Then don't come near me. Crash was surprised by her words. Daring to order your own fiancé around, are you? He said a bit frustratedly, Bianca, you've really grown up. Crash feigned threatening Bianca. Where are you going to run to? Seeing her run away in fear, Crash laughed happily. Deep down, Crash always valued her. Bianca was like a little sister, so he couldn't help but tease her. He suddenly thought about something else. The people I knew before returning to the past, Crash firmly asserted, are probably looking at me with cold eyes. Arthur's voice echoed in his head. Crash, have you become soft because of this peaceful life, and yet you think you can stop the world from being destroyed? Hearing that, Krash froze. Arthur, Crash sank deep into thought. I hate to admit it, but except for the very last moment, he was always a pioneering hero, never letting his guard down. Krash also wondered about him. Ah, where is Arthur now and what is he doing? Blokin spoke up, interrupting. Are you flirting with your fiancée? His face had veins of anger. Looks like you're having too much fun. Balakin Valheim, the third son of the Valheim family. Crash didn't back down and replied, everyone needs to relax. In his mind, Blokin had a different view of Krash. The person who used to be so afraid of me that he didn't dare look straight at me now dares to stare at me like that. He immediately speculated, is the rumor about him defeating Anix true? Crash approached to ask, ah, you're so busy yet you still have free time to come to the Blue Pine Pavilion. He confusedly repeated, busy. He recounted what he knew. I heard that the Yahello Academy recruits based on exams regardless of status. Crash smiled brightly and reminded, then you should also prepare yourself. Brother Blokin felt a wave of discomfort spread through his body. Is this guy provoking me? In his thoughts, he was inferior to no one. Even the most powerful empire respected the Valheim family and didn't dare attack the Starlon kingdom. The Valheim family stood on a completely different height compared to other families. And I, a true member of the Valheim family, am also from the direct bloodline. Balakin felt directly insulted. And yet he dares to tell me to prepare for the academy entrance exam. Don't get cocky just because you beat someone like Anix. He tried to keep a smile. You're joking, right? Balakin replied with an implication. Well, that's easy to understand. For failures like you, worrying about passing or failing the academy is natural. But you don't even care, must be true, right? Seeing that made Balakin even angrier. What's with that attitude? He calmed himself down. Actually, I came here today to announce an order. Crash was surprised. An order. Balakin continued, we will prevent the world erosion from occurring at Golok Mountain. Crash didn't believe it. What? He refuted. Family missions don't require those under 15 to participate. Balakin smiled with assurance, but his eyes were not friendly at all. Don't worry, I will go along as your guardian. My younger brother, the one who supposedly defeated Anix, surely won't tremble before a small thing like this, right? He was just testing his strength and holding himself back. Crash didn't hesitate to agree. Fine, I'll go. Deep down, Crash wasn't wavering at all. He even casually thought, I'm more used to world erosion than a peaceful life like this. Whether this is Balakin's trap or not, I already have a plan to deal with it. Bianca approached and asked, Crash, where are you going? Crash summarized it. I'll be away from home for a while to handle the erosion. Don't bother following me. She wanted to go along. Crash, am I not allowed to go with you? Bianca bluntly exposed, someone who is only 13 years old has to go and stop world erosion. That sounds absurd. Balakan became angry when contradicted by Bianca. You cursed princess. Crash shielded her. She is my fiancé. Surely a heroic older brother like you doesn't think a 12-year-old child's words are serious, right? Seeing that he couldn't do anything to the main character, Balakan had to leave in anger. Seeing Balakan leave angrily holding his stomach, Crash patted Bianca's head in praise. Well done, Bianca, she shyly replied. I didn't really do anything. He still acknowledged, Bianca, it's just that you don't realize it. She seriously warned Crash, please don't collapse again. Crash turned his back and left triumphantly. Yeah, I'm off. The changes in the world are more or less related to world erosion. World erosion? A phenomenon where our world is encroached upon by another world. Sometimes erosion creatures will appear, or the environment will undergo anomalous changes. And if the erosion progresses even further, that area will completely become another world. Balakan and Crash arrived at that place. Thus, a swamp area had formed on Mount Gerlach. He asked to get information. It's ranked as a 3-star erosion. Did the purification team say anything? The person next to him replied. They said they would start work as soon as the master is eliminated. Hearing that, Crash evaluated the mission this time. 3-star? Ah, this is a level that a mid-level professional night team can handle easily. He also had to acknowledge Balakan. Besides, Balakan might look like that, but he is a high-level professional. He will definitely be able to defeat the master of this erosion area. Balakan approached him. Crash also quickly replied, yeah. He spoke in a superior tone as if granting a blessing. I brought you here so that you, a beginner-level expert, can gain experience. Crash also acted according to Balakan's intent. Okay, brother, but deep down he had already looked down on him. Experience? Who do you think you're talking to? He came here with his own purpose. The only reason I followed you, the one who only wants to impose your will on me, is for one reason only. Crash had wanted to do it for a long time. Testing a temporary method for my madness. The people in the group were panting with exhaustion. Damn it, at this rate, we'll never be able to finish them all. Hey, look. Crash kindly reminded them. This monster doesn't have a head but is full of teeth. If you get bitten, the wound will swell up. So remember to coat your entire body with aura. They immediately complied. Yes, sir. One person in the group expressed his admiration. Lord Crash, have you ever experienced world erosion before? Crash waved his hand, denying it. I'm only 13 years old. If I had the opportunity to approach an erosion area, wouldn't that be too strange? That person also nodded. That's true. Balakan felt uncomfortable seeing Crash so calm. But why is a failure like him so calm in an erosion area when it's his first time? He recalled his own past. The first time I came here was when I was 15, and the result was that my pride was crushed to pieces. Balakan was jealous of Crash when he was surrounded by everyone. And yet, how can he calmly give advice to the knights? It's completely different from my first time. Crash looked up provocatively. Balakan gritted his teeth in jealousy of him, then turned and left. Balakan deduced many things. This is just a hypothesis. He felt fear. If Crash grows up like Charlotte and surpasses me, Balokin panicked at that future. Am I going to become the failure of the Valheim family? Crash approached him. Brother, he kindly reminded. We are about to reach the place where the master dwells. Balakan reassured himself, then denied his ability. You're lucky, this time it seems easier than my first time. It seems there are no other erosion creatures besides the master here. Crash seriously replied. That is all the more reason to be highly vigilant. He emphasized the danger. It means this 3-star master is powerful enough to maintain the erosion area on its own. Balakan shouted loudly at the others. Hey, don't be shaken, these are just the words of a child. He said loudly to reassure, this place is only 3-star level, finish it quickly and let's go. Everyone followed. Yes, sir. Crash sighed at the situation. They will realize it themselves soon enough. He ignored it and focused on his work. I should focus on what I need to do. Crash keenly realized, I can feel it now. The world erosion energy deep within him assessed. It's even clearer than before I turned back time. That is thanks to the extreme poison that has seeped into his blood. He took out an object. Now I just need to swallow it. Crash immediately felt his heart beating quite fast when it was time for him to execute. Suddenly his eyes widened in shock. A second later, Crash spat out blood. Seeing him vomit blood, everyone ran over anxiously. Lord Crash, are you okay? Crash hurriedly reassured. Yeah, I just tripped. Seeing that, Belokin suggested, "Since it's your first time, don't push yourself too hard, I'll carry you." Krash immediately refused, "No need." Crash was slightly exhausted. Vomiting blood, he quickly deduced the reason. Erosion energy is like a type of extreme poison, so it's understandable to be like this. He was determined to do it, but I have no other choice but to endure it. Isn't this why I practiced extreme poison so it would seep into my blood? He focused his mind. First, according to what the Extreme Blood Poison Manual records, let's try mixing aura with erosion energy. Aura will circulate without stopping. Crash pondered to himself. If the aura flow is like a large river absorbing erosion energy, it will eventually become one with that river, creating a new color that cannot be covered up. This is the consequence of the madness. He quickly realized, normally I wouldn't be able to handle it. Crash seized the opportunity. It's time to use that secret technique. Old stories surfaced. After Demaris Valheim disappeared, the Blue Pine Pavilion was closed and seemed to sink into oblivion. Vague images appeared, but one day, a blind ancestor discovered the secret archive. Unfortunately, because he was blind, he couldn't read the manual. The swirls of the story continued. Since then, he was forced to lock the archive door forever so that no one would repeat the tragedy like him. That person wrote down notes. He decided to leave behind a manual and finally created something for posterity. The name of that secret manual is Changes in Crash's Body, a superhuman sense that can feel every vibration through aura, the sixth sense. Crash could feel it very well. Currently, I can only expand the sensing range by about 1 finger joint, but even that is enough to realize my position. He smiled confidently. Where I am standing is not a world covered in madness. Crash breathed heavily in fatigue. The madness is thinning out. I managed to overcome it by following the Sixth Sense manual. Crash also quickly realized, of course, this is only a temporary solution. If I absorb world erosion energy, the madness could strike at any time. He calculated the future clearly. At that time, I will still need Bianca's snow doll curse. Crash was constantly excited, but even though this was just a patchwork measure, it couldn't be denied that he had gained control thanks to it. He was happy because this was the first time he could step to a new height. Suddenly, he used his body. I couldn't. As soon as Krash turned his head, a monster appeared. It was resting with its eyes closed. The next second, the monster's 2 bright red eyes widened. Everyone was amazed at its physique. Everyone screamed loudly, "It's the master monster." It opened its mouth disgustingly. Balakin was shocked by this scene. Crash was no exception. Everyone realized, Scngani, the thousand-faced demon. Everyone was on high alert. Everyone prepared to fight. Balakin tightened the sword hilt in his hand and issued an order. The space around seemed to be suffocated. Every sound gradually faded. The sword in his hand emitted a blue light. Suddenly from the sword tail, a fierce red light erupted violently. The fire quickly covered the entire blade. Witnessing that scene, Crash couldn't help but be stunned. Lord Balakin's Ignis flame always makes people amazed. A soldier couldn't hide his admiration. Not only that, its destructive power is also terrible. After all, it's a top-tier skill that can incinerate everything in front of it. He pursed his lips tightly and a single name echoed in his head. Ignis. Old memories suddenly rushed back. It was the same skill that had burned his arm in the past. "Do you see the difference between us now? I don't have time to waste on trash like you." He called out from behind, Balakin. The previous savage image of him appeared clearly in his mind. Before turning back time, you were completely insane. But now, Belokin Quote's whole body was glowing with a blinding red light. But what about now? In the palm of Crash's hand appeared a monstrously grinning mouth. "I hope you won't change one bit." In the blink of an eye, a soldier's face was peeled away. Anix, who was also fighting, couldn't help but be stunned. Is that the face-stealing curse? His gaze swept quickly across the battlefield where even the seniors were struggling with its 8 arms. How can apprentices like us avoid such a curse? Anix gripped his trembling sword tightly. If it's come to this, the only way out is to run. Balakin's voice rang out like a thunderous attack. His sword strike tore through the wind, heading straight for the thousand-faced demon. At that moment, the thousand-faced demon shrieked as if trying to tear space apart. Its entire body blazed fiercely. He raised his sword high and shouted, "Don't give up, I'll open a path." The knights looked up at the scene, standing motionless. Then in unison cheered, "Truly Lord Balakin, even the guardians couldn't resist him. We will follow you, Lord Balakin." Balakin looked back. Crash, are you witnessing this scene? But he couldn't see the figure he was looking for. He's not here, could he be dead? Hiding behind a rock, Crash thought in astonishment. Is he targeting the thousand-faced demon instead of me? His eyes gazed thoughtfully at the thousand-faced demon, which was writhing in pain. Balakin suddenly paused, blood tears. The overlapping faces on the thousand-faced demon's body oozed dark red streaks of blood. He stared straight into its eyes, suddenly realizing something was wrong. Balakin's eyes widened, thinking, if it continues like this, it will be very dangerous. Without hesitation, Balakin leaped high, quickly putting distance between them. His teeth gritted as he looked down below. What is this terrible pressure? Belokin gripped his sword, forcing himself to focus. I must focus on destroying the thousand-faced demon right now before more anomalies occur. He commanded clearly, all knights take down the thousand-faced demon. However, Balakin quickly noticed something unusual. I coded my attacks in aura, yet it's still ineffective against it. Knights, listen up, strike again before it mutates further. Suddenly he froze, stopping all movement of his hands. His eyes swept across the ranks behind him, and he shouted furiously, how can the Valheim Knights be terrified of something like this? But the only response was bodies standing as motionless as statues. What on earth are you? Belokin Quotes' eyes showed clear shock. The thousand-faced demon's curse, but I haven't even touched it yet. Suddenly, a hand gripped his face tightly. Don't tell me that strange sensation earlier meant it had already caught me. The thousand-faced demon moved closer, staring intently at Belokin. At that very moment, thunder rumbled and rain poured down from the sky like a waterfall. He raised his hand to cover one side, his eyes lost and panicked, muttering, this is bad, this isn't good. Balakin's legs were stiff and couldn't move. I'm about to be killed. The ground beneath his feet turned into a swamp, slowly swallowing his body. At this rate, I'm going to lose my life. It raised a skeletal hand, purple energy radiating thickly. The swamp rose to his neck, making Balakin terrified. Why is this happening to me? Thunder tore through the sky, and a horrifying thought flashed in his mind. Death. He couldn't believe it, muttering, I, the strongest of Valheim, am going to die. Because Charlotte appeared right next to his ear, whispering, you're such a fool. Her expression showed disappointment, outdone by a sister 3 years younger. After all your boasting, you lost your entire squad of knights and now you're running away to save your own life? What a fool. Charlotte left her final judgment. Because you are a pathetic failure, you must die. The thousand-faced demon immediately lunged to chase Balakin. He raised his hand to block its attack, but only the sound of a wind-tearing scream remained. Just then, Crash appeared, grabbing Balakin's 2 legs and pulled him away to escape. He opened his eyes, his voice trembling, who are you? When he saw the face in front of him clearly, Balokin couldn't help but be stunned. Crash, why are you here? He smiled with relief. Brother, you're awake. Balokin frowned suspiciously and asked, You're still alive? Crash replied quickly, yeah, I've been observing everything from a distance this whole time. He explained when he saw him being swallowed by the swamp after the thousand-faced demon's attack. I avoided its gaze and pulled you away from it immediately. He forced himself to sit up. Then I'm fine, I can walk on my own. Balokin looked at Crash in surprise, seeing a body that couldn't use aura. He crouched down, holding his sword out, and asked, are you sure you don't need my help? He gritted his teeth to endure the pain, then decisively snatched the sword. I don't need help from an idiot like you. Suddenly, a noise echoed. Balokin was startled and panicked. He hurriedly asked, is the thousand-faced demon still nearby? Hey, how far are we from the scene? He shook his head and stood up. Who knows? Thinking for a moment, Crash continued, we've been walking for quite a while but still haven't escaped. Perhaps this world erosion is a closed space. Hearing these words, he couldn't help but shudder. Does this mean we can't leave without defeating the thousand-faced demon? Balakin lowered his head and cursed. Damn it, Crash called out, brother. His voice sounded steady. Actually, I have a secret technique. It's something Charlotte passed down to me. Crash raised his hand to explain seriously. The reason I could face Anix at the holy sanctuary of stars was thanks to this secret technique. He looked at him. Charlotte's secret technique. Balakin mused thoughtfully. Even someone like Charlotte holds special affection for her younger brother. Does she really have emotions? He spoke, unable to hide his hesitation. Do you think we can defeat the thousand-faced demon with that secret technique? He answered decisively, we can. Recalling the scene that just happened, Crash said, instead of avoiding the thousand-faced demon and dying slowly in the erosion zone, I think this way is worth a try. He held his hand out in front of Balakin. I understand you don't trust me. Crash tried hard to persuade him. But brother, you surely trust her skills, right? He drove the tip of his sword into the ground and replied softly, yeah, after all, Charlotte is a genius. Suddenly, Bellokin shouted, but if we fail, we're both done for, kid. Crash stood behind him and answered, the corner of his mouth curling up, rest assured, I definitely won't fail. In the forest, rain poured down intensely, trees leaning in the strong wind. Crash looked at Bellokin, lowering his voice. The thousand-faced demon is approaching. He wondered, brother Bellokin, are you ready to cast IGNIS? Flames erupted on his hand as he replied, yeah, I am. Hearing that, Crash continued, then let's begin. His footsteps stopped. He gripped his sword with both hands in front of his chest, his entire body emitting a blue light. Crash squeezed his eyes shut. Bellokin looked at the scene, his expression unable to hide his surprise. Streams of light were continuously absorbed by the sword. What? That is truly an amazing level of focus. Bellokin's gaze flickered, and so did the aura surrounding it. He stared at the sword, stunned to realize he had never seen an aura so clear and pure. Then he lowered his head in thought. When he told me to combine the Ignis flame with Charlotte's secret technique, I didn't believe him, but now I've seen it with my own eyes. An aura I couldn't master despite years of hard training. How could he use it so easily? Crash's voice rang out, breaking the silence. Brother Bellokin, please use Ignis. Bellokin let the flames appear on his hand and replied, all right. The flames slowly transferred into his sword. In an instant, Crash's entire body erupted in a brilliant red light of fire. He looked at the fiery sword as if he had discovered something. Crash called out, brother, he asked confusedly, is there a problem? He shook his head slightly. No, don't worry, it seems I'll make it in time. I don't need your support anymore. Bellokin knelt on one knee, exclaiming, what? His eyes widened. Crash's flames were even more intense than his own. The sword in Crash's hand burned brighter by the second. Bellokin thought, that sword will truly be able to kill the thousand-faced demon. He mused pensively. In the blink of an eye, I lost all my subordinates. I was lucky to survive that battle and fled in shame while all the knights were killed. Bellokin suddenly had a thought. If Crash truly defeats the thousand-faced demon, then watching Crash charge up to fight it alone, am I even worse than a failure? With a single strike, he sliced the body of the thousand-faced demon in two. Bellokin stood motionless, his face frozen. The thousand-faced demon burned in a sea of fire. The sky gradually cleared and the rain stopped falling. Crash called out, brother. He turned his face to look at him, his voice confident. I've handled it. Bellokin gritted his teeth in anger, that easily. He held the sword in his hand, his face twisted with rage, then go die. The sword strike lunged forward but was casually blocked by Crash. Bellokin was stunned, unable to believe what his eyes had just seen. His hand holding the sword trembled. Why can't I use IGNIS? He smiled as if having achieved his goal. Thanks, Bellokin. Crash's face showed clear terror because he hadn't changed one bit. Crash recalled his previous memories. Bellokin's unlocking condition was very simple. First, voluntarily offer a part of Ignis to the opponent. Second, believe that the opponent can master Ignis better than yourself. Seeing Bellokin's fearful expression and finally the collapse of his pride, Crash swung his sword at him. The moment he swung the sword, IGNIS already belonged to him. The burned thousand-faced demon appeared in the thick smoke. He drove the tip of the sword into the flesh on the ground and called out, Bellokin. Then he held it up in front of his face and continued, I too once wanted to live in harmony with you and everyone else. Crash recounted his childhood, but he would often say, don't interfere in things that aren't your business. The image of him grimacing and scolding, you can't do anything. But he wanted to thank him. It was your intense hostility that blocked all my opportunities. Crash stuffed the still hot flesh into Bellokin's mouth. Even so, I still thought that just this once you would be able to accept me as a real younger brother. He showed no emotions. Anyway, I still held a sliver of hope that because we were brothers this time they would acknowledge me. But it turns out you never had that thought. His breath was shallow and Crash's tone was cold. It hurts a lot, doesn't it? Each word he recounted was like a reminder to him of the past. When you burned my arm and face that year, I also writhed on the ground just like you are now. Bellokin's legs thrashed violently, but after a moment they stopped moving. Crash looked up at the blue sky inside. His voice deepened with a hint of irony. How ironic that today is such a beautiful day. Inside the castle, a voice echoed. Lord Bellokin's entire squad has been wiped out. At the main Valheim estate, a man spoke. The erosion has been reclassified as a level 5 star. They say only a high-ranking expert can suppress it. Another person added, if Lord Belokin hadn't sacrificed himself, Mr. Krash wouldn't have been able to survive. A servant couldn't hold back his tears, questioning, what does that mean? Only that failure survived, the butler immediately warned. Watch your mouth, the servant. The butler glanced over, his voice calm. Lord Belokin died to protect his younger brother. Let us honor that noble sacrifice, Valheim's chief butler. Then he patted the servant on the shoulder, his voice softening. Do not let Lord Belokin's noble death go to waste. Krash heard these words in their entirety, thinking to himself, they believe the testimony, so I don't need to worry about being suspected. He shoved both hands into his pockets and quietly walked away. Thanks to Belokin, this mission has yielded great results. Painful memories surfaced one after another. I have fully adapted to the blood-infused extreme poison and also confirmed that the sixth sense can somewhat control the madness. And through Ignis, a purple flame ignited on his hand. I have obtained the black flame. Ignis can incinerate everything. He clenched his fist, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly, so when I touched the essence of world erosion, the result was this. The black flame is stronger than expected, perfect for a trump card. The color looks vicious, but since others can't see it, it's fine. Now the only remaining issue at the main estate is... Krash stopped in front of a room and raised his hand to knock. Besides, the issue that must be resolved in the family is that I have to undergo an investigation into the anomalies in the eroded lands. From inside, a voice rang out, come in. He was still lost in thought. Until now, the cause still hasn't been clarified. Krash pondered, no, the truth is that it is the work of world invaders. Its true body is sleeping in an eternal dream and can only observe reality through its subordinates. An immortal. He opened the door and walked in. The fact that they have started operating means I could encounter the subordinates of that immortal at any time. Hearing the noise, Saphira spoke up. Lord Krash has arrived. She spoke in a flat tone. We have been waiting for you. Saphira, a fourth-rank investigator, Erosion Survey Bureau. His gaze stopped at Saphira's neck. In that moment, Krash felt a bit of a tremor. The black star on her body is. He reached out to rub his head and laughed. I didn't expect us to meet again so soon, she confusedly gasped. Huh. Krash suddenly became serious and spoke clearly. Hey, immortal, I want to negotiate with you. He pointed his finger straight at Saphira. I will erase your immortality. In an instant, the corner of her lips curled up. Tell me, you are a regressor, aren't you? Right. Saphira's eyes suddenly flared with an ominous red light. I am looking for a different destination, but it seems fate has sent me to the wrong place. Where a body is locked away, the immortal garden. Although the body is intact, there are no signs of consciousness. Before turning back time under Arthur's command, I tried to steal his immortality, but that attempt failed miserably. Arthur clutched his arm. Now, with this, the immortal only has enough strength to maintain his recovery ability. He no longer has any power to control his subordinates. Mary's gaze had a touch of sadness. So the reason he ordered so many henchmen to come is because his true body has been cursed and cannot move. Sounds pathetic, doesn't it? Sigrun didn't think so. Pathetic. Did you forget that it was he who leveled up the erosion areas and sowed hell for us? She stepped forward and pointed straight at Mary. Stop pretending to be high and mighty. Lady Sigrun, I didn't mean that. Lilith clasped her hands together. Regardless, the issue with the immortal has ended. There will be no more meaningless battles. Her eyes contained another small figure, but it's such a pity. Attention was directed toward someone else. You still couldn't steal the immortality, huh? Krash was embarrassed. That's right. He avoided her gaze. Even if I'm reborn, that is still impossible. Those chains are not easy to deal with, because I completely fail to meet the conditions to unlock them. Back to reality, Saphira's cold voice came through. Tell me, you are a regressor, aren't you? She was like the embodiment of a demon. I am looking for a different destination. And yet, Krash looked seriously at Saphira. A regressor, what makes you think I am a regressor? She wore a cold smile. The moment a child dared to propose a deal with someone like me, you revealed yourself. Only a regressor would dare to do that. The claws on her hands became sharp. You have been trapped in your own endless loop. And yet you dare to claim you will kill me. Someone who transcends time, don't make me laugh with such blatant lies. He naturally didn't let himself lose ground. This is not a lie. He directly reached out his hand to confront her. Because my skill. The mouth from Krash Quotes palm lunged out at the call, wrapping around Saphira, can steal even your immortality. Black hat. Saphira's clenched hand trembled. For your sake, I have upgraded every erosion area for centuries just to find someone capable of killing me. And now you have the ability to steal the curse of immortality and finally stand before me. Only then did she speak up. What are your conditions? Krash spoke frankly, help me become stronger. My skill only activates when I am stronger than you. Saphira still kept her sinister smile. Then I will take you as my disciple. If that helps me escape this immortality, then I am ready to sell my soul to you. Her eyes flashed as she received the answer. Fine. Immediately, Saphira demonstrated her own power. I, Saphira Garden August, will turn you into the strongest. The strong wind made Krash cover himself with both hands. Just the aura of hers, even if it was only a projection, was overwhelming enough. Saphira Garden once possessed power on par with Arthur and commanded countless subordinates. Thanks to him, I can become even stronger. His hands shook. Even if I have to borrow the power of an Earth invader, I will protect this world from erosion and from the brink of destruction. According to what Krash knew, his skill is a power unique in the world. According to the law, Arthur's regression skill has returned to his hands in this lifetime, meaning I cannot freely turn back time anymore. If this world is destroyed again in this era, I will also disappear along with it. He tried to reach his hand out in front of her. It's a pleasure to have you as a companion. Saphira's pupils trembled. Saphira still wore that ghastly smile. Krash directly patted her head, call me master. Resolving this matter, Krash didn't intend to stay any longer. All right, now I can leave this place. Saphira was surprised. You don't live here, Krash calmly replied. I haven't set foot here for many years. Then added, I've almost forgotten the faces of my own parents. Elsewhere at the Valheim estate, the adult wing, the main Valheim hall, Lord Krash, a girl appeared. Mother requests to see you. He was confused. Mother wants to see me? She didn't even bother to appear when I was still at the Blue Pine Pavilion. Could it be she heard rumors that I changed and is curious? The person who arrived said, that's right, and furthermore, announced another shocking piece of news to him. The clan leader said that after returning from the Forbidden Zone, he wants to meet you privately. Krash was truly frightened. Father wants to meet me. The man in his knowledge that guy had reached the demigod realm. Perhaps he sensed something from me. Through the stars. It didn't stop there. Lady Arya requests that you stay at the main mansion until then. However, Krash was not an idle person, but Bianca was waiting for him and he still had a mountain of work to do. I don't have time to waste in this place, he asked back. So this is not a direct order from father, is it? Without waiting for the other to answer, then I will go back first. This attitude left the girl speechless. What? Krash simply walked past. I will return when father summons me. Behind the glass door was a woman who had always been observing, or perhaps, the carriage leaving the estate. He himself would come looking for me. In the city, it was relatively empty and quiet. The carriage moved to a deserted hill. Krash stretched, finally escaped that place. In the near future, I don't intend to go back there. Suddenly, a beak tapped on the glass. Show some manners, impolite disciple. Open the door. He started and shouted loudly. Saphira, don't you think a color as deep red as that is too conspicuous? She heard that and immediately changed to black. Rest assured, I can change color at any time. See, now I look no different from a crow. See that? Saphira took the opportunity to mock. Now I'm as black as your soul. In his heart, Krash was determined. I must get your curse as soon as possible. Nevertheless, he was still curious and asked, what about your main ability? She, in the form of a jet black bird, leisurely groomed her feathers. You also know that I cannot move my real body and yet you still touch my pain. Truly a narrow-minded regressor. Hearing this, another figure appeared in Krash's head. In reality, Arthur was the one who actually turned back time. I only borrowed his skill, at most I'm just a faded copy. But there was no need to explain these things to Saphira. As the sunset fell, it was also time for the carriage to stop. Before entering the house, he didn't forget to remind her. Ah, by the way, there is a white-haired girl at the Blue Pine Pavilion. Treat her kindly, understand? A lovely duck had appeared. The girl Bianca hugged her books and came to welcome him. Welcome back. He hurriedly said, see, I told you I would return. Ariad hurriedly walked over. Lord Krash. Seeing that, Krash asked, Ariad, did anything happen while I was away? He immediately reported, Sir, there is a letter from Lord Darling. In the letter, I have finished the remedy for the discoloration disease that you requested. It almost automatically formed in my head when I thought of you. I will deliver it soon. The kiss printed on the paper was truly speechless. They say geniuses are often eccentric. He handed the letter back to Ariad when Darling arrived. Treat him with the utmost care, he will be your benefactor. He took it. Understood, sir. Afterward, he leaned close to Crash's ear. By the way, Lady Bianca was very worried about you. He was surprised. Bianca. Ariad recounted. Yes. When she heard you were caught in the erosion zone, she immediately prepared a carriage, intending to go to the main estate herself to see you. Then she even planned to walk the road to the main estate. Krash Quotes' eyebrows furrowed slightly. A hand was launched immediately afterward. It's been a long time since I checked the seal on Bianca. Could it be? Along with the contact from his energy, the information board appeared. First, unlock condition, become Bianca's friend. To Crash's astonishment, Condition 1 has been met, Bianca's first lock has been released. Condition 1 met, Bianca's first lock released. Just like that, Crash stood hiding, looking at Bianca in front of him. This made her confusedly wonder, do I have something on my face? Hearing that, Crash awkwardly replied, no, I just wanted to introduce a new friend to you. Its name is Crim. Instantly, Crimson, who was spreading his wings, was grabbed by Bianca. She immediately hugged the crow tightly and said, Crim, it's as soft as whipped cream. This reaction of her surprised Crash a bit. So you like animals too, Bianca? At this moment, he whispered in his head. By the way, how do I unlock the second one? The notification board appeared again. Second unlock condition, become Bianca's friend. It was quite surprising that the two unlock conditions were exactly the same. Crash calculated inwardly. Usually, when speaking of important people, everyone imagines parents, children, friends, or lovers. At this point, Crash gently stroked his chin in thought. By name, I am her fiancé, so perhaps lover is the most likely. At the same time, after a while of hugging Crim until it was all ruffled, Bianca finally let it go. Her eyes followed the small black bird attentively, but her face still showed no emotion. Crash's thoughts continued to surge, but becoming the lover of a Bianca who has no emotion, before returning to the past, the conditions weren't like this. Moreover, inside I am an adult, flirting with a 12-year-old is a bit problematic. At this time, Crim also whispered in his ear, it seems that pale-skinned girl is interested in you, she's sticking to you and won't let go. Crash refuted, she's looking at you actually. The sunset grew darker. Crim said, anyway Crash, what's wrong? Crim threw his head back and declared, I want to test your strength, playtime is over, go to the training ground quickly. This made Crash a bit stunned, but he still agreed. All right. Before long, Crash was lying on the ground, panting incessantly. Crim looked down and scoffed, pathetic, I didn't expect a regressor to have such trashy talent. Crash lay on the ground, admitting, I said it already, I am a genuine good-for-nothing. Suddenly, Crim interrupted. Currently, you've only managed to crawl to here thanks to the experience of your previous life and your secret arts. But that effort will be surpassed by a real genius in less than 5 years. However, that is only true if we are talking about pure innate talent. Other than that, before me, talent means nothing. Crim continued to explain. Because you have your skill, right? If you lack talent, just steal it from everyone. You, who have never escaped the bottom of the production line, I will be the one to pull you up. You will seize everything from a place higher than the clouds. And finally, even steal my immortality. After hearing these words from Crim, Crash's hand clenched tightly. Looking out the window, he softly replied, that goes without saying. A few days later, Darling also made his way to Crash's mansion. He happily ran over and called, hey, did I keep you waiting long, baby? Crash didn't bother caring about his appearance and continued practicing swordsmanship. Since when did I become your baby? Hearing that, Darling felt extremely excited. Oh, so cold. Without letting him say anything more, Crash glanced and asked, by the way, did you bring what I asked for? Darling reached into his pocket and took out a small glass vial. It contained something like a plum seed and said, I'm done. What do you think? I really am a genius, right? Staring at the vial, Crash replied, why ask? It's obvious you've always been a genius. Darling's face immediately turned pink with embarrassment. He lunged over to hug Crash and whispered, oh my, so cute. This action startled Crash so much that he yelled, hey, let go, no sword fighting. While the two were constantly struggling, a conversation took place again. Darling said, "Oh right, I want to tell you this, I heard Anix has changed." Crash confusedly asked back, "Anix?" Darling replied, "He stopped training after losing to Charlotte, but I heard he started again after the incident at the Star Temple." Hearing this, Crash felt helpless. He held his head and thought, that traitor, is he really using me as motivation? Then he told Darling, "Damn it, ignore that Anix guy. If you're done, get lost instead of standing here." Right at this moment, Krim from the branch next to them spoke up, "But Starlon has other plans besides Valheim." "But that's fine anyway, I intended to use Alicia to strengthen your weak body. Ask that owner of the alchemy refining to mix you a few vials. It's a special medicine that, when drunk, will increase physical stats and aura." Regarding ELICIA, it is an extremely expensive type of medicine, and sometimes the secret mixing techniques are only passed down through bloodlines. Crash thought to himself, Alicia was originally only for the chosen few. Back then, this was out of my reach. Seeing Darling trying to hug him again, he angrily roared, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? I said no sword fighting." Krim added, "I know the formula, just tell him what to do." Then Crash told Darling, "There is one more thing I want to ask." Hearing that, he confusedly asked, Just a moment ago you were chasing me away quickly." And then Crash whispered, "I want you to make a vial of Alicia." Hearing that, Darling was extremely surprised. Why all of a sudden did the news about Anix get you fired up? But can you afford the ingredients? Valheim won't back you up, right?" Crash replied, "Don't worry, I'll manage." In his head he thought, "I can still do it if I use knowledge from before the regression." Right at this moment, Krim interrupted, "Just repeat after me." Crash went along and repeated, "The ingredients to mix Alicia are," and then he just casually told Darling everything. The guy's expression went from listening attentively to extreme surprise, and finally to panic to the point of having to take out pen and paper to record. "So mixing this with that becomes this, huh?" Amidst Krim's arrogance, Darling exclaimed, "Wow, where did you dig up this kind of information?" Crash replied vaguely, "It's the secret formula of the Valheim family." Darling was surprised. Only the Valheim family would have that. However, he wondered, "I want to try it too, but the problem is how to get the ingredients. I can't even touch the Yangheat snow mushroom or the golden dragon grass." First, the Yangheat snow mushroom only grows on the Black Mountain, but the mountain is steep and heavily eroded, so it's almost impossible to find. Regarding this, Crash had already calculated, so he replied, "I will ask my fiancée since it's her family's land anyway." Continuing, Darling pointed out, "Then only the golden dragon grass remains. It's said to be a mysterious spiritual herb, only growing near the golden dragon's nest in the remote regions of the Empire, sometimes available on the black market. But if the Empire smells anything, there will be big trouble." Crash pondered for a moment and replied, "If there's no other way, I'll have to track down a black market dealer." Darling suggested, "Let me show you a better way." Crash was surprised. "Another way?" Darling explained, "In the Aphania Empire, there is a martial arts tournament for teenagers under 15. If you win first place, the prize is the golden dragon grass. What do you think? That's a good idea, right?" After hearing, Crash immediately held his forehead and replied, "Did you forget? I am of the Valheim family. The Empire is likely using the tournament to gain political advantage over the Academy. If a Valheim participates, things will get messy for sure." Regarding this, Darling was indeed short-sighted. He took out a very suspicious vial and said, "Of course I have a plan, baby, leave it to this genius. Haha." Holding the vial, Crash was a bit suspicious. "What is this? Why is it so clear? Do I have to drink it?" And then, as soon as Crash finished drinking, his body started having a violent reaction. And finally, ta-da, Crash had officially become a girl. He couldn't believe his eyes and exclaimed, "What the hell is this?" Darling explained, "Anyone can participate in that tournament as long as your identity isn't revealed, right? Just participate as a girl, right?" However, he couldn't agree with this. Crash yelled, "Stop it, change me back immediately." This scene left Krim speechless. "I can't be patient anymore." Crash immediately flared with murderous intent, unleashed his own power and threatened, "Hey, are you kidding with me?" Darling, facing this pressure, could only stammer with tears in his eyes, I'm sorry." A few days later, Crash gripped his sword tightly, his entire body radiating killing intent as he faced Cream, with neither of them willing to yield. Crash habitually closed his eyes to focus, while Cream stared intently at him with bloodshot eyes. Then it softly closed its eyes and flapped its jet-black wings. Turning around, it whipped its wings in a stroke, releasing streams of magical energy. It lunged rapidly toward Crash. As if sensing the atmosphere around him changing, Crash snapped his eyes open. He immediately raised his sword, blocking that stream of magical energy. Wherever the magical energy twisted and turned, Crash was able to block it all quickly. After spinning around, he collapsed in exhaustion, and Cream said that was enough for now. Then it seriously lectured him. The single strike technique that I taught you this time is a style that allows you to read an enemy's attack. You must not falter. It is an advanced technique that helps you instantly grasp an opponent's movements, but combined with your innate intuition and sixth sense, you have touched upon the realm bordering on precognition. Crash listened, but couldn't say a word, still busy catching his breath. Cream paused for a moment before continuing its lecture. If you use spirit elixirs to strengthen your body, your movements will eventually keep up with your thoughts and you will become even stronger. With that, it flew to Crash's side and announced indifferently, "It's also time for us to leave this place." Crash lazily sat up and gave a soft, affirmative grunt. Leaving the training room, he walked while rummaging through his clothes, muttering, "Well then, let's go." "You didn't forget to bring it, did you?" After saying that, he looked at the potion bottle and recalled the past. A few days ago, when he held this potion bottle in his hand, he was half doubting, asking himself, "This kind of elixir definitely won't be exposed, right?" Darling kept assuring him, "Don't you think? Even magic can't detect it, you know. If you use it to disguise yourself as a commoner of the kingdom, you can participate in the tournament." Crash turned to him and loudly reprimanded, "You should have given me this potion from the start. You turned me into a girl." Darling turned away in a huff, sulking and muttering, "It was just a joke, you don't have to be so uptight." However, when Crash pressed him on how long it would last, he happily replied, "About a day." Crash listened and slumped down in disappointment, lamenting, "So I have to wear this face until tomorrow, huh?" Back in the present, after looking at the potion bottle in his hand for a while, he couldn't help but sigh. Darling is truly reliable, but this is so exhausting. Arriving at the destination, as soon as he saw him, Alliard hurriedly bowed and said respectfully, "I have been waiting for you for a long time, young Master Crash." Beside him were also Bianca and Flower. Alliard pointed to Flower and introduced, "I have spoken with Flower, someone from the lawless zone and a merchant who will support your illegal entry." However, he didn't forget to remind him, "Please remain hidden throughout our journey." Crash stepped forward closer to Alliard and praised him incessantly. "A smuggler of eroded species, with this identity I should be able to cross the border smoothly. Arid, you are truly something. Thanks to you, I can rest assured handing over the Green Pine estate for you to look after while I'm away." Alliard, entrusted with this heavy responsibility, seriously replied, "Yes, please leave everything to me." Then, overflowing with determination, he promised, "I will absolutely not let anyone inside, even if the person coming is the head of the family." As a cool breeze blew by, Crash said nothing but smiled faintly, remembering a memory from the day after Darling gave him the shape-shifting potion. Crash had given it to Alliard. Holding the medical report in his hand, Alliard trembled as he knelt down, his voice choked with sobs as he thanked him profusely. "Thank you for curing my daughter. Now, even if I die, I have no regrets." Crash took advantage of his vulnerability to make a request. "If you are truly grateful, then continue living because I saved your daughter's life. You are not allowed to die until I give you permission. Just continue serving me. This is a small price compared to her life, right?" Although his words sounded like a question, they seemed more like a command. Alliard's aged face, streaked with tears, froze slightly. It took a few seconds for him to find his voice and he decisively shouted his pledge, "I will survive at any cost." Seeing that everything was going as he desired, Crash curled his thin lips into a slight smile, thinking to himself, "It seems I can finally stop worrying about Arid betraying me." Furthermore, returning to reality, Crash slowly took a few steps forward. In front of Bianca, he said politely, "Bianca, thank you for agreeing to my request." After that, he added a few concerned reminders. "You haven't been home in a long time, go back and get some proper rest." But Bianca frankly refused. "No, as soon as I get the Heetiang snow mushroom, I will return immediately." "I will wait for your return at the Green Pine estate, Crash." Hearing these words, his hand reaching out to receive the basket from her suddenly froze. He quickly gathered his thoughts, took the basket she offered, and smiled with a promise. I will try to return as soon as possible. He looked at the delicious sandwiches neatly arranged inside the basket. Crash was in a somewhat cheerful mood and said, "So that's why it was so noisy yesterday, huh? Thanks, I'll eat them later." Bianca said nothing but gave a slight nod. After thinking for a moment, she added another sentence. "Well then, travel safely, Crash." Crash opened the door to board the carriage, heard that, and turned back to bid her farewell and give a reminder. "You take care of yourself too, Bianca." The carriage began to roll forward. Sitting in the carriage, Crash thought with high hopes, "Let's head to the Empire." Crash seriously put all his strength into training. Wherever his sacred fire sword swung, flames would blaze brightly. He looked down at his hand, which was absorbing magical energy. Crash clenched his fist again, closing his eyes to focus. Cream suddenly flew over to check on him. "How is the erosion power going?" Crash replied vaguely. "It's stable thanks to my sixth sense." Then he honestly added, "The last 5 days have been peaceful. That merchant is following a route that avoids the eroded zone. It's a pity that on the way here I couldn't absorb any unrefined erosion energy." Cream squawked a few times, commenting, "Just that alone is enough to see how capable that butler of yours is." Right at this moment, Flower, who was leaning against the carriage, was leisurely chewing an apple and reading a book when she suddenly heard a strange noise. The apple in her hand suddenly dropped to the ground. Cream tilted its head to listen and sense. Then it said seriously to Crash, "It seems the carriage has run into trouble." Over by Flower's side, she was being controlled by 2 bandits. The masked rogue said, "I'll go first." 2 of his HENCHMEN also laughed flirtatiously. "You sure are impatient, boss." Watching the boss's hand about to touch her, Flower couldn't help but burst into tears, pessimistically asking herself, "Damn it, I couldn't sense the bandits at all. Could it be that I'm going to die like this?" Just then, they suddenly heard a noise. The boss stopped and looked over, unable to believe his eyes. Both of his henchmen had their heads chopped off by a flying sword, with blood splattering everywhere. The boss was shocked and stunned. He turned back to see Crash, who was looking at him with intense killing intent. He shouted angrily, "What is with this brat?" His hand reached out to draw his weapon. Pushing Flower aside, he loudly ordered the others, "Catch him!" Receiving the command, his henchmen lunged toward him. One guy was still boasting, dismissively asking, "Hey brat, what now? You can't rely on your weapon anymore, can you?" Crash calmly drew another sword and coldly asked him back, "Weapon, you mean these things?" The guy immediately shut up. Crash didn't waste much time, lunging forward to deal with these bandits. Seeing his henchmen all gone, the boss was terrified and instinctively shouted, "You." Crash only then turned his gaze toward him. He then slowly walked in front of him. The boss was terrified. He boldly challenged him, "You're not an ordinary kid. I'll kill you with one blow." Saying that, he swung his axe toward Crash. Crash quickly raised his sword horizontally to block the tip of his axe. The boss was slightly stunned, but he very quickly changed his attack style, all of which were blocked by Crash. He shouted in disbelief, "My attack was it red?" But his habit of boasting remained unchanged. He yelled aggressively, "You think a cheap trick like that works on me?" Crash, without a hint of fear, casually replied, "Is that so? I actually thought I could handle it without even using my sixth sense." The boss was provoked and confidently declared, "Since it's come to this, I'll use that secret technique. I'll crush your head along with that sword." As he spoke, he swung his axe down. Seeing Crash raise his sword to block it, he narrowed his eyes and bragged, "You've fallen into the trap." With his phantom axe technique, he was smugly thinking Crash couldn't block it, but the reality completely shocked him. When he saw his technique, Crash suddenly froze. The space in the forest suddenly became eerily quiet. A flame erupted surrounding Crash's sword. The boss instinctively shouted, "That technique." What? He was both scared and worried, his face stiffening. Crash raised his flaming sword, his cold gaze staring at the boss as he asked in a low voice, "That secret technique just now? You are a disciple of the Slaughter Hound, aren't you?" Crash looked at him and questioned, "Hey, you are a member of the Butcher Dog, aren't you?" He began to ponder. Butcher Dog Berkman, a serial killer who later became a subordinate of the World Invader, serving alongside Bianca the White Demon. Crash recalled the original story where, when Charlotte attacked the Butcher, he was destined to infiltrate Starlon to survey the citizens, only to be stopped by Charlotte. He swung his sword, severing his arm, and asked himself, "So what exactly is going on here?" He suddenly remembered a newspaper article. That incident made Charlotte famous throughout the Empire. Imperial Daily, 16-year-old girl of the Valheim family directly defeated an agent of the World Invader. His infiltration of Starlon should not have happened yet. The Butcher ran away in terror as the flames chased him. Meanwhile, Crash was still calculating, so why are his subordinates already present in the lawless zone? He swung his sword, and the butcher's body burned to ashes. Crash muttered, "Isn't it too early?" He frowned and whispered, "I have a bad feeling about this." Crash raised his hand to let Cream perch on it, then ordered, "Quickly get the golden dragon herb and get out of here fast." In the bustling capital of the empire, Ceylon, a sign with an arrow pointed in one direction, "Register for the martial arts tournament." On the balcony, a girl looked at the people below and exclaimed, "So many people came to participate." The girl shouted happily, "There's a whole pile of interesting opponents." The girl was Cicely Ephania, the 14-year-old fourth princess of the Ephanian Empire. Cicely said with excitement, "Oh, my precious little diamonds, I will bring each and every one of you to Yahello Academy." The red-haired girl standing next to her named Sira frowned in protest. "That really doesn't look dignified at all, princess. If His Majesty sees you, he will faint on the spot." Cicely quickly yelled loudly, "Don't mention my father again, I'm hearing hallucinations again." "Cicely, it's you again." Sira called out worriedly, "Princess Cicely." The girl didn't answer immediately but quickly covered her ears. Cicely Ephania, the youngest daughter of the emperor. A young Cicely held chalk to write on the blackboard, already possessing a mind outstanding enough to solve advanced math problems. The sounds of praise continuously fell into the girl's ears. "Her Highness Cicely could rewrite the history of the empire. We should report her talent to His Majesty the Emperor." Sisley frowned in thought. A candidate for the throne. The girl gripped the stack of papers in her hand tightly. "If someone as weak as me gets involved in royal succession, I will be killed immediately." The girl jumped high and threw all the papers into the air. "I must make everyone give up on me, otherwise I won't be able to survive." Cicely began to cause trouble. From then on, Cicely used her genius brain to behave like a wild, uncontrollable troublemaker. The scholars frowned, and in the end, even those who used to praise her intelligence began to think, "We must have been mistaken about her." Sira looked at Cicely and pondered, giving up on viewing her as a succession candidate. "I have observed Her Highness Cicely for so long, I know these actions are just a performance, but," she sighed to herself, "lately she's gone a bit too far." Cicely reached out over the balcony and shouted, "Sira, look." The girl looked toward Crash, that gloomy aura, those squinted eyes too. Cicely looked at Cream, and that raven perched on his shoulder too. The girl exclaimed, "He looks just like a real villain. What if he comes from Valheim, the mortal enemy of the Empire?" Sira commented, "He does look suspicious, but I don't think the Valheim family would come here." Cicely stomped one foot on the railing. "Don't underestimate my intuition." The girl leaped down. "I'll go probe him," Sira screamed in panic. "Your Highness Cicely." The girl landed safely and ran straight toward Crash. It's time to expose his true identity. She hadn't run far when Cicely tripped and fell. The girl panicked and opened her eyes wide, thinking, "I'm going to fall." Before Sisley hit the ground, Crash stepped forward and quickly caught the girl's waist. He looked at Cicely coldly. "Hey, troublemaker." Before leaving, he said, "Watch where you're going." Sisley looked toward his retreating figure, thinking to herself, "That calm voice and that attitude too." The girl realized, "He knows who I am." Cream perched on Crash's shoulder sighed. "How unlucky, we ran into the fourth princess again." He agreed. "Luck, if I could, I would rather stay away from her." He remembered the registration form. "So I'm done registering for the tournament." Tournament registration form, age 11, from the Starlon Kingdom, name, Crad Owen. Now I just need to find an inn. He went to the first inn, and a piece of paper had the words, "Full." The second inn was the same, "Full." Crash stood in front of an inn with a sign saying "Full" sighed. "Everywhere is fully booked." Crash mused, "It seems I have to sleep on the street tonight." Someone suddenly called out to him, "Hey kid." A short, hunched old woman smiled and asked, "Are you planning to participate in the tournament? If you need a place to stay, just come to my place." The old woman smiled innocently. Cream commented, "She looks suspicious as hell," but Crash quickly stood in front of her and said, "Really? Then I'll accept your offer." Cream shrieked, "Hey, didn't anyone ever teach you not to follow strangers?" Crash replied, "In my past life I was always forced to sleep on the streets, and I'm sick of that." It shook its head in utter despair. Then it flew into the air, following Crash while thinking, "These regressors, honestly." A moment later, the old lady led Crash in front of a house. "We're here." The old lady said, "You can use the room at the end of the second-floor hallway. I'll prepare dinner early, so come down when you're done." Crash walked up to the second floor while replying, "Thank you so much." Cream had now returned to sit on his head. Crash walked along the hallway, breathing a sigh of relief. So lucky, at least I have a bed to sleep in tonight. Cicely suddenly appeared in front of him. Cream grew depressed, and Krash also clutched his face, sighing inwardly, "It's her again, huh?" It silently screamed, "This is a total trap, I told you not to follow strangers." Krash walked past Sisley to open his room door. "Can't let her recognize me, just ignore her and go to the room." Only then did Sisley speak up. "How strange." Sisley grabbed his hand and asked, "I'm this cute and even took the initiative to start a conversation, yet you're ignoring me. Or do you like boys?" Krash angrily furrowed his brows. He went into the room, placed his coat on the table, and replied, "Not interested, you're not my type. There are many people in this world much prettier than you." "Is that so?" Sisley questioned, "For example, who?" He walked away quickly. "I'm under no obligation to answer." The girl continued to follow him. "So mysterious, huh?" Krash was annoyed when the girl kept following him. Krash turned around and said, "Stop following me." Sisley acted coy. "Let's eat together, I want to know more about you." He waved his hand in refusal. "Too much of a hassle, count me out." Cicely suddenly asked, "Are you for real?" The girl's face darkened as she questioned, "Knowing that I am a princess, you still behave like this?" The girl smiled and asked, "Lord Crad from Starland." Crash stood guard in his thoughts. This kid, just from a few sentences, she already guessed where I'm from. Crash mused, "If I say anything more, my identity as a Valheim will be revealed." He walked down the stairs and said, "I don't know what you're talking about. Kids should eat quickly and get ready to sleep." Cicely shouted angrily, "Who are you calling a kid?" while she herself was also a child. Sierra walked up beside the girl and asked, "Fourth princess, is that boy really from Starland?" The girl commented, "Even though they speak the same language as the Empire, Starland still has its own intonation and pronunciation." Meanwhile, Crash and Cream were eating dinner. "Delicious," Cicely continued. "His voice is quite similar to the Empire's accent, but the core cannot be changed." Sierra praised, "Only the princess could notice such a tiny difference." The girl pondered and replied, "I suppose so." Cicely smiled faintly, "A brain that can analyze every piece of information that normal people would ignore." The girl widened her golden eyes and commented, "Based on that reaction, it seems like he knows me very well, but inside my head I don't have a single memory of him. That ability is very close to a mind's eye." Sierra drew her sword and wondered, "Should we capture him and interrogate him?" Cicely loudly protested, "No, everything is finally starting to get interesting, don't do anything unnecessary." The girl asked, "More importantly, have you dug up anything about her yet?" Sierra replied, "Yes, just as you guessed, Your Highness." She spoke up, "The third princess, Sigrun, has become a completely different person compared to a year ago." The girl remembered Sigrun's irritated face. Cicely realized she is no longer the sister she used to be. The girl fearfully thought, "This is very dangerous." Cicely gripped the stair railing. That feeling of unease back then was indeed correct. At this rate, the first princess and the second princess will also be in danger. Cicely whispered, "A rain of blood will descend upon the imperial palace." The next day, Krash swung his fist, sending his opponent flying. The muscular guy flew straight into the arena wall, causing dust and debris to fly everywhere. The announcement rang out immediately. Qualifying round ended. 4 survivors, please leave the arena. Krash put on his cloak, Cream landed on his shoulder, and whispering voices immediately erupted. "Who is that guy with the squinty eyes? Is he a hired killer? And that crow is weird too, even though he moves like that, it never leaves his shoulder." Cream suddenly wondered, "That look on your face, is it because you've been pestered by that girl since yesterday?" Crash remembered Cicely's questions. "Why are you participating in this tournament? Do you have any siblings?" He sighed and said, "Just from one short conversation, she managed to dig up all that information. It's enough to drive someone crazy." Crash glanced over, "Even so." He turned around, leaving those lying on the arena floor behind. Luckily, it didn't affect the qualifying round. Crash walked inside and thought, "The qualifying round is a 100-man team battle. Only 4 surviving teams make it to the finals. All small fries with a power gap like this, winning is a matter of course." A man leaning against the wooden pillar suddenly spoke up, "Just like the rumors, the crow on your shoulder looks suspicious." Krash furrowed his brows in thought, "What now?" The man covered in bandages questioned him, "You're a member of the Night Crow, aren't you?" Crash asked back, "Night Crow." He explained, "The Night Crow Assassin Clan. They are an assassin organization that doesn't belong to the Empire, but they are feared as the most dangerous force in the Empire's underworld." Eventually, they also became one of the causes leading to the empire's collapse. Crash frowned and thought, I don't know everything because I'm not an imperial citizen, but I've never heard of any Night Crow in the academy. After that, he said, you're mistaken, I'm not with the Night Crow. The bandaged guy was afraid he misunderstood and quickly said, wait, stay calm, I don't know who's behind you, I just want to make friends with you, after all, we're both in the assassin business. He waved his hand to leave and called out, so, that's that, nice to meet you, Night Crow. Crash wondered who's behind this. Cream asked him, what's with that face, is something wrong? It flapped its wings and flew towards the bandaged guy, then said, I'll give you a hand. The bandaged guy suddenly froze when he saw Cream. Afterward he walked slowly toward Crash. Crash watched it fly toward him and chatted, what did you do? Just a simple brainwashing magic, you're quite versatile, Crim. It quickly replied, only this time. Crash called out to the bandaged guy, hey you. He questioned, what happened to the Night Crow? The bandaged guy spoke up, the Night Crow fell into a crisis of extinction not long ago. Crash questioned, extinction? But the Night Crow is also participating in the martial arts tournament, right? The bandaged guy answered mechanically, it's by order of the new master, the one who pushed them to extinction. He questioned, who is the new master? He hesitated, that is. The bandaged guy answered, the second prince of the Ephania Empire. Crash thought of the chubby guy's face and pondered, Sigrun and Cicely's brother, huh? Crash muttered. Cream beside him wondered, second prince, is there a problem? He immediately explained, the Night Crow is a trap the Empire set for the nobility. They use the Night Crow to monitor and adjust the steps of the nobles. Crash continued to ponder, the imperial family was the master from the start, so calling him the new master is very strange. The connection between the Night Crow and the imperial family was supposed to be hidden from the public until the empire fell. He thought of the second prince's face and said, however, for even a lowlife like him to know the second prince is the master means someone is using the second prince and intentionally spreading rumors. Crash paused and then speculated, wait a minute. Initially, the second prince's role was to consolidate the first prince's power. They intend to eliminate the second prince first to weaken the first prince's power. He pondered, if so, the one benefiting from this conflict is. Crash thought of her sinister face and realized, Sigrun Ephania. He remembered everything and asked himself, are you kidding? Was Arthur's memory transfer really successful? He frowned and muttered, if that's the case, the person Sigrun will target now that she has future memories is. He imagined Cicely lying in a pool of blood, the one who committed suicide after hiding the Emperor's symbol, the white dragon orb, and the one who made Arthur only an emperor in name, the fourth princess, Sisleyefania. Crash continued to muse. To ensure she could trade places and the throne she seized for Arthur, she tried to eliminate Cicely, the one who was in the way, first. He speculated, if Sigrun ascends to the throne, the empire will definitely perish, and the empire's collapse will lead to the world's erosion. Crash raised his hand, a black aura immediately appeared. To prevent the doomsday, I have to interfere with her plans. For the world, I will seize Sigrun's skill. He spoke up, Crim, help me. It flew high and commented, a regressor usually only acts based on information. He smiled, raising his hand so Cream could perch on it, but I am the one who decides to lend you power. I'll help you, only this time. It looked at the bandaged guy and asked, by the way, what about this guy? Crash heard this and replied, forget him, he has no value left. Cream threw one of its feathers at him, then, let him be my henchman for now. The bandaged guy suddenly moved. It ordered, return to where you belong. Cream watched the bandaged guy turn and walk away staggering and asked, so, what do we do next? Crash put his hand on his face and replied, it's time to use my appearance. In this form, find the real Night Crow hiding in the finals. At a slum, a homeless person was groping in the dark looking for food. One guy suddenly shouted, making those around him terrified, CRAD. Did he say his name is CRAD? That guy opened his mouth to bite a piece of discarded French fry. After that, she tilted her head and smiled dangerously, daring to impersonate me, a member of the Night Crow. I'll teach you a lesson you'll never forget. At the martial arts tournament main event top 32, Crash easily put his opponent in a chokehold and took him down. He jumped off the guy and raised his hand for Cream to perch on. The referee shouted loudly, the winner of match 32 is Crad. The audience erupted in shouts, amazing, unbelievable, no way. One guy shouted, I was starting to get bored watching these kids fight, but you made it interesting. Crash straightened his cloak while thinking, everyone thinks I'm Night Crow. He speculated the real one should be appearing soon. Sounds from the stands still echoed, night crow, night crow. Krash looked up and saw Sisley, that girl. He sighed inwardly. I warned her, yet she still came to watch. Sisley happily waved at him, night crow. On the day the qualifying round ended, Krash was depressed to see Sisley, while the girl happily asked, Crad, heard you swept the qualifiers. The girl turned to look at Crash. You really aren't just an ordinary kid. He pursed his lips in silence. Sisley immediately questioned, what's with that look? Crash suddenly said something that made the girl freeze. Nothing, just, you've lived a quite complicated life, haven't you? Sisley wondered, did something happen? He walked past the girl and said, I'm just saying, watch your back. The girl clutched her forehead and sighed when she heard him continue. The main event is tomorrow, so I'm going to sleep. The girl looked toward Crash's room door and pondered, something must have happened when I wasn't paying attention. Where did he get that information? Sisley suddenly asked, Sira, can we really trust the Imperial spies we hired? She frowned and replied, I will double-check to be sure. The girl said, I'm counting on you. Back to the present, Crash looked at Sisley and pondered, if Sisley is still here even though I warned her, then she must have realized Sigrun's plan. The girl smiled and teased at this moment. Night Crow sounds cool, right? Crash walked while saying, let's go, Crim, now just wait for the real ones to appear. He speculated, does she know I'm pretending to be Night Crow? Inside the preparation area, a person leaning against a wooden pillar spoke up. Hey. She stuck her tongue out and questioned, is pretending to be Night Crow fun? He remembered the bandaged guy and told himself, this feeling seems familiar. Cream flapped its wings and flew up. Crash immediately smiled. Don't tell me. I didn't expect them to crawl here this early. She immediately drew 2 short daggers. After that, her whole body suddenly vanished. She quickly approached Crash. He looked at the 2 short daggers and muttered, dual daggers. She continuously swung her hands to slash at Crash's face. He gently dodged, making her only cut the outer layer of his cloak. After that, he raised both hands. Crash grabbed her 2 hands and laughed coldly. As long as I grab you, you're nothing at all. She suddenly burst into insane, loud laughter. A sharp bone fragment suddenly protruded from her arm. A series of bone fragments appeared like spider legs, and she laughed arrogantly. It ends here, kid. Crash immediately raised his leg high. As he jumped, he brought his leg over her head, shocking her. What? Crash kicked her straight in the face. With Cream perched on his head, Crash smiled and spoke. It's useless. Dark magic fused with world erosion won't work on me. He suddenly called out, Evlesk. She was silently terrified, wondering, how does he know my true identity? Krash walked up to her and said, Sigrun is holding your heart, right? Where is she now? I need to talk to you. Evlesk immediately feigned ignorance. What the hell are you talking about? He pointed to her chest and proposed, let's make a deal. I'll use my skills to get your heart back for you. He continued, in return, you have to tell me everything about Sigrun's plan. Krash exposed Evlesk quotes identity, leaving her gasping in fear. World Invader, Codname Night Raven, Necromancer Evlesk Bnapoch. Crash recalled Evlesk's story, the World Invader who was imprisoned by the Empire for 1,000 years after her heart was stolen. Your fate is even more cursed than mine, huh? He thought dejectedly while mopping the floor. One day, Arthur said he'd found a way to use her and brought her along. She was always hiding in the tent, yet she always acted so full of herself. I only knew she was the only necromancer in the world. He stood before a room door and sighed to himself. I had no idea she was actually a night raven, now that I think about it. He thought about the signs he had overlooked. Dead bodies not revealing information, even when assassination attempts failed, and a necromancer controlling the dead, ravens gathering around corpses, a family of assassins. All signs pointed to Evlesk. Crash kicked the door open and pondered. The night ravens were wiped out when I was still at the academy, so I never knew their true identities. She disappeared because Arthur captured her, Cream remarked. You're unusually rough today, Crash. He walked in and saw Evlesk shivering, wrapped in a blanket, and said, I have to be serious about this. Look at this room. He ripped the blanket away, terrifying her. If he didn't put on the pressure, she'd push her luck immediately. Crash placed his hand on her chin and ordered, look up. Evlesk cried out loudly, what are you doing? You said you'd find my heart for me. He answered, that's right, but I intend to show you my skills firsthand first. Krash raised his hand and streaks of black energy immediately appeared. The target was, being bound by this many conditions, the usual methods wouldn't work. He searched for the padlocks and thought, Black Cloak skill. Crash looked at the number of padlocks and commented, Bound by this many conditions, ordinary methods won't work. Evlesk looked at him in fear. Crash offered, Evlesk, if you give me permission to take over your heart, I can retrieve it right here, right now. A tear fell down her cheek. Evlesk shouted, permission, I give it to you, I agreed already. Crash heard this and said, it can't just be empty words, you have to mean it. She yelled, what am I supposed to do? I'm being serious. Cream, standing on Crash's shoulder, sighed. He spoke, listen carefully, imagine this. Crash asked Evlesk, you're sick and tired of your current life, right? He described each scene to her. Once you get your heart back, you can lounge in this room all day, delegate work to your undead in a comfortable environment, try whatever food you want, and just play. He continued with a dry smile. But if you can't get your heart back, you'll have to submit to royalty and work for them for the rest of your life, day after day, endless forced labor. The undead sensed danger and immediately appeared around Evlesk. She said fearfully, no, I don't want to work anymore. A surge of power rushed out, surprising Crash. So this is the power of a necromancer. Evlesk pleaded while crying, I've been working for 1,000 years already, save me, Crad. He stood before her and said, then you have no other choice but to hand your heart over to me, right? So you never have to work again. The two continuously exchanged words, I don't need my heart, furthermore I will give the heart to you, just let me go. Still not enough? Why, I'm telling the truth. Crash frowned and commanded, offer your heart in exchange for your deepest, most truthful wish, Evlesk. He placed his hand on her head and said, trust me. Evlesk sobbed, please. Amidst Evlesk's pleas, the chains gradually broke. I want to live an idle life, carefree, to play every day. Please take my heart. Krash smiled in praise. Well done, Evlesk, now you are finally free. Evlesk called out, then hurry up, take my heart back. He immediately stopped her. Wait, hold your end of the deal, this is a trade. He said, I will return the heart to you when everything is over. She continued to cry, I don't want to work. Crash said angrily, shut up. She sat down on the floor. Crash looked at her and wondered, Evlesk, what is Sigrun planning to do? Evlesk replied tremblingly, do you know the fourth princess's bodyguard, Sira Vetera? She continued, I was ordered to eliminate her, to use her body to assassinate Princess Cicely. No way. A spear pierced through Sira and she cried out in pain, you are even stronger than me. Sira looked at the woman in front of her and screamed, Mary Diana. A raven perched high above observing. She said arrogantly, you should be proud to die for the Empire. Mary stabbed the spear deep once again. Then she pulled the spear out and smiled faintly. Wild sword, Sira Vetera. One of Evlesk's undead walked over. Mary announced, Evlesk, orders from Lady Sigrun. She walked away and continued, use Sira's corpse to assassinate the fourth princess, Cicely. Mary looked up at the moon and recalled, it's been a year since I returned to the past. She spoke tremblingly, Lord Arthur, can you see me? Lady Sigrun and I are doing this for Lord Arthur, I miss you so much. At a small house, just before the apocalypse, someone spoke, the first Saturday after the regression, at 1 p.m. Arthur continued while putting on his shirt, meet in front of the Statue of Peace. Mary stood with Sigrun in front of the statue. Mary recalled, how happy I was when I heard Lord Arthur's words, then I brought a heart full of excitement to our meeting point, but Lord Arthur didn't appear. She muttered tremblingly. Why? Duplicate entry, ignored per instruction to keep sequence. She lowered her head and whispered, I don't see Abela and I don't see Lord Arthur either. She walked while asking herself, where is he? It's been exactly a year since the day I started waiting for him. Mary gripped her spear tightly. Just as Lady Sigrun said, I must believe in Lord Arthur, and before he returns I will reclaim my old strength and make him proud as his strongest spear. She turned to look at the big man. I must try even harder, no matter what, I must complete this mission. Mary called out, hey Evlesk. She questioned, that crowboy in the tournament, he's one of your corpses, right? Evlesk hesitated, that's right, but, she sneered, he knows how to show off, attaching a crow to attract attention and more. Mary narrowed her eyes and commanded, while Lady Sigrun is away, don't you dare do anything stupid. Do you know who is holding your heart? Evlesk replied tremblingly, of course. She said, then allow me to take my leave. Mary watched the big man carry Sira away and mused, Evlesk, you usually collect ugly corpses. She licked her lips and smiled faintly, and yet you kept such a cute corpse like Crad a secret. A pity though, he's just a corpse anyway. On the arena floor, Crash drew his sword in boredom. He looked at the person in front of him and sighed, I didn't expect to face him in the finals. Commoner, 14 years old, Pyrrell. Crash thought as he drew his sword. A pure-hearted teenager dreaming of world peace, a boy from the countryside, he looks normal at least on the surface. Pyrrell drew his sword, Crash thought to himself. Actually, Pyrrell is one of the mighty warriors of the Blue Generation. The audience screamed. The Night Raven is drawing his sword for the first time. Is that kid really that strong? Pyrrell suddenly spoke. CRAD, actually, you don't like assassination, do you? Ravens flew in circles in the air. Pyrrell continued. I heard that Yahello Academy is neutral, no nation is allowed to interfere. Since we both made it to the finals, we'll definitely be accepted. You can stop being a night raven and live like a normal person. He said you. Crash sighed inwardly, still hasn't changed a bit. Pyrrell suggested, give up assassination work entirely. Crash pursed his lips thinking, he's also a kind friend. The referee raised his hand. Crash spoke, Pyrrell, let me give you some advice. He said coldly, if you cling to hope too tightly, you will never be able to endure true despair. Pyrrell whispered, refused. The referee lowered his hand, signaling the start of the match. Pyrrell moved rapidly everywhere using the 10 image steps, closing in on Crash and mocked, disappointing Crad. Crash frowned and realized that move. Pyrrell continuously swung his sword to attack, but Crash blocked them all. He silently frowned. Pyrrell moved while calculating. Did he read my feint? It's as if he knows my swordsmanship inside and out. He blocks every attack. He thought he looks at me as if he's seen a ghost. Well, I am like a ghost after all. Crash thought silently, someone who has already died once. He recalled Crash's appearance in the past. You grew up in the snowy land, your steps flowing like water, 10,000 miles, 10 steps. He created that move himself. He practiced harder than anyone, his strength even matching Anix's, from feints to every habit to his finishing move. Crash smiled faintly. I watched it all from behind. Perhaps I understand you better than you understand yourself. Cream flew high, muttering, why? Pyrrell pondered, my attacks don't reach him. Crash, you've done it. He thought while parrying Crash's attacks. Striking after the enemy but hitting the target first with a blunt sword, you've awakened its true potential. The sword pierced the empty space right beside Pyrrell's head. Crash spoke, Pyrrell become even stronger. He kicked Pyrrell hard in the stomach, so that even if your hope shatters. He raised his sword high, the referee immediately announced, and the winner is, Crad. Pyrrell spoke weakly, I see, I wonder if we'll meet again someday. He said, Crash, thank you. Pyrrell asserted, I will try harder than ever, more than the curse you took from me, I will definitely protect this world. Crash from the past muttered, I see. At this moment, Crash turned and thought, that's the first time I've heard anyone say thank you. He spoke, then see you at the academy. Pyrrell lay on the arena floor and whispered his agreement. He said, we will meet again at Yahello. In the stands, the fat man yelled at Evlesk, are you well prepared? Truly a night raven never disappoints me. He was Shifen Ephania, the second prince. He delusionally thought, if I use the night ravens to bait more nobles, the throne will naturally belong to me. Evlesk rubbed her hands flatteringly. It is my honor, your highness, to receive your favor. That attitude is correct, Shifen sneered. Remember clearly, your heart is in my hands, be obedient like a loyal dog. She replied tremblingly, yes, your highness. The servant behind his back noticed a direction. A series of people slowly walked toward them. The butler screamed, who are you? How dare you? Do you know the second prince is here? Step aside. The incident response team. Shifen watched the armored people in front of him in fear. The Black Dragon Knights, the execution squad, why are they here? A person walked up and spoke, Second Prince Shifen Ephania. Mary announced coldly, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of the fourth princess, Cicely Ephania. He screamed, what Cicely? Why would I kill that little idiot? Mary said coldly, at the Night Raven's den, we found an order signed by you, commanding the assassination of the princess. Shifen yelled, nonsense, I never wrote such a thing. Evlesk, take out these rebels who dare to slander me as a criminal. Evlesk was too afraid to respond. A sound rang out, to be precise, who was killed? Mary was surprised and pondered, that voice. Cicely asked happily, hey Sira, when was I killed this time? Sira smiled faintly, we haven't even seen an assassin, let alone an attack. Mary was bewildered and asked herself, Cicely Ephania and Sira are both still alive. Cicely shouted, how strange. In Mary's terror, the girl continued, but he seems to truly believe I was killed, doesn't he? Mary gasped, dazed, wondering, what the hell is going on? The truth began to rewind to the night Sira Vetera was assassinated. Cicely's intuition had been absolutely correct. She worriedly asked Sira, can we really trust the royal spy we hired? In response, Sira could only suppress her unease and promise, I will go and check again. At that time, they were completely unaware that all the spies planted in the palace had already betrayed them. Cicely bitterly wondered why she, someone who had given up the fight for the throne many years ago and pretended to be foolish, was still being targeted. In the dark of night, Sira Vetera hurried away, her instincts sounding the alarm. She decided she had to return to the princess immediately. But just then, a jet-black wave of energy surrounded her. A deep, muffled voice resonated directly in her mind, Sira Vetera. In exchange for your life force, I will grant you temporary immortality. So, just pretend to be dead. Sira was shocked to realize it was Crash's voice. Was he speaking directly into her head? The wave of dark power swallowed her in sheer astonishment. An eye glowing intensely red with a star appeared creepily. Sira woke up, still shocked by what Crash had done and his request for her to fake her death. But at that exact moment, a cold killing intent closed in from behind. As the question, "Is someone right behind me?" flashed through her mind, Mary Diana appeared with the spear of death. A ruthless thrust pierced Sira's body. If it hadn't been for the immortality power from Crash's crow at that time, neither Sira nor the princess would have survived. Now, Cicely clearly introduced. This is the former deputy commander of the Gold Dragon Knights and also my escort knight Sira. Arrest the deputy commander of the Black Dragon Knights on suspicion of espionage. The steely declaration rang out amidst the tense atmosphere, making the deputy commander tremble, sweat pouring down in terror. Standing nearby, Mary was stunned, her heart filled with dread. Cicely curled her lip in an ironic smile, her cold eyes staring straight at her sister, who was standing in a daze. You brought the Black Dragon Knights all the way here because you were sure we had perished, right? Facing Mary's silence, Cicely coldly commanded, Sira, finish her. Immediately, Sira swung her giant greatsword, delivering a lightning-fast strike toward Mary's position. A violent explosion erupted, but Mary Diana had timely used her spear to block Sira's attack. Mary stood rooted to the spot, her mind in turmoil. How could things have turned out like this? She bitterly recalled her ruthless plan. She had ordered Evlesk to kill Sira, then use her corpse to assassinate Cicely. And yet they were both standing right here, acting as if nothing had happened. Mary gritted her teeth, clenching her fists in resentment as she realized the spies that she and Sigrun had painstakingly planted in the Black Dragon squad had been uprooted so easily. Cicely's gaze seemed to see through her heart, making Mary tremble. That cunning fourth princess must have seen through everything. She ruined my entire plan, that is why Sigrun sought to eliminate her. She realized that if Cicely were allowed to survive, she would sooner or later become an immeasurable threat to her plans. Deciding she could wait no longer, Mary roared, I must kill her right here and right now. She reached into her bag, pulling out a bloody object that pulsed. It was Evlesk's heart. Mary squeezed it tight, activating the blazing red magic seals surrounding it. She gritted her teeth and ordered, Evlesk, assassinate the fourth princess immediately. Evlesk was now under control, her eyes wide with pain. Hey, what am I supposed to do? Crash hasn't stolen the heart yet. My body is moving against my will. Evlesk screamed in despair as her body began to lose control under the influence of the seal. Witnessing the delay, Mary roared crazily, Evlesk, what the hell are you doing? A wave of blazing red energy erupted from Evlesk's body, terrifying those around her. In extreme desperation, Evlesk silently called out to her only savior, Crash, save me. Instantly, a powerful wave of dark purple energy suddenly reached out from the void, gripping the arm Mary was using to hold the heart. A powerful blow struck Mary's wrist, forcing her to lose her grip immediately. Mary looked down at her empty hand in shock, and she screamed in despair, the heart has disappeared. Unable to believe reality, she realized she was left completely empty-handed. Not only had she failed to take the fourth princess's life, she had also failed to capture the second prince, and had even lost Evlesk's heart. Every calculation suddenly collapsed, leaving Mary screaming in ultimate resentment. But the madness quickly overwhelmed her reason. She gritted her teeth and made a resolution. Fine, then I will finish the princess off myself. Taking advantage of the moment everyone was distracted by Evlesk, Mary saw this as her only chance to turn the tables. With absolute speed and maximum acceleration, she zoomed forward like a lightning bolt, aiming straight for Sisley and roaring. A strike with the force of 1,000 pounds came down, but at the very brink of disaster, Crash timely appeared to intercept the attack. The dark purple energy erupted, colliding violently with Mary's technique, creating a jarring explosion right in front of Princess Sisley. While Mary Diana was surprised to realize Crash's presence, he was still straining to hold back her spear. Crash looked straight into Mary's eyes, dropping a familiar, sarcastic remark. As always, your simplistic way of thinking hasn't changed at all. Those words left Mary stunned, wondering who the person in front of her was to understand her so well. Seizing the chaos, the prince immediately ordered his soldiers. "What are you doing?" Arrest her immediately. A hand suddenly reached out to grab Mary's weapon. The suspect in the plot to assassinate the royalty, Mary Diana, was finally captured to the astonishment of everyone present. Controlled tightly by the knights, she struggled wildly and screamed, "Let me go, my spear." Although her plan was completely exposed, Mary Diana couldn't hide her resentment. This is so frustrating." She silently blamed herself for doing unnecessary things despite knowing the outcome. Finally, she was escorted away with desperate cries, "Save me, Sigrun Arthur." As soon as the crowd dispersed, Cicely hurriedly ran toward Crash, asking anxiously, "Crash, are you okay?" Crash suppressed the pain, replying with difficulty, "Not exactly." He silently concluded that he had only just managed to block Mary's terrible strike, despite pouring all the strength of his dark fire into it. Crash realized he was still a long way from reaching the master rank. Sisley quickly reassured him that this was the expensive price for daring to confront the cult directly. She also had the royal defensive necklace, making Crash admire her meticulous preparation. "You were truly well prepared," he gently reminded her. "As long as you are safe, that is the most important thing." Amidst the soldiers investigating accomplices, Crash signaled to Evlesk, "Let's use this chaos to leave. Evlesk, get ready." A dark purple wave of energy erupted under their feet, swallowing them both into darkness. Before disappearing completely, Crash didn't forget to leave a final piece of advice. "Cicely, take care. Especially keep an eye on your siblings." Cicely and Sierra only had time to shout to stop him to treat his wounds, but Crash firmly refused. "Don't worry, I'm used to this. Take good care of yourself." Over here, Sierra didn't know what the words the protagonist just said meant, while the princess just blushed. Watching the remaining traces, Cicely felt sad for not having had time to say thank you for saving her life. She made a resolution to follow Crash to the academy to repay this debt no matter what. Meanwhile, the carriage carrying Crash and Evlesk was gliding away rapidly. Crash silently marveled at the usefulness of the teleportation skill, even though it still had quite a few limitations. Evlesk explained that she could only teleport living people for short distances. Immediately after, she took out a brilliant blade of grass and handed it to Crash. "Here, take it. The golden dragon herb you asked for. Because of this herb I almost lost my life. Remember to pay me well." Crash took it with satisfaction and kept his end of the bargain. "Now everything is settled. The heart I promised is here, take it." Evlesk took the pulsing heart in shock, unable to believe she was actually allowed to keep this precious item. She clutched the heart tightly, moved as she exclaimed, "I thought you were going to make me work for you forever." She noted that Crash seemed different compared to the corrupt people she had met before. Even though he used that very power to block Mary Diana's attack, Evlesk still felt Crash was different. Crash pondered to himself, perhaps because the dark fire burned away the power absorbed from the toxic blood sacrifice in her eyes, I look like one of her own. He realized this was why Evlesk trusted him, but he was also concerned about being misunderstood by truly corrupt people later on. Suddenly, the crow cream flew over to interrupt their conversation. The crow's eyes became sharp and solemn. It looked straight at Crash and delivered a shocking announcement. "It seems something has happened to your family." The haunting announcement from the crow cream left Crash stunned. He only had time to gasp in panic. "What?" Cream continued with a serious tone, revealing that it had just received news from the servants at Hardenheart. A dangerous individual named Bloodhound had sneaked into the Hardenheart Mountains. The worst part was that Crash's fiancée, who was present there, had vanished without a trace. Rage and anxiety flared up. Crash gritted his teeth. The bad premonition he had when meeting the Bloodhound's disciple earlier turned out to be because of this. There was no time to delay even a second. He roared orders at Evlesk. "Evlesk, my fiancée is in danger. Head to Hardnhart immediately." Immediately, the carriage turned and sped off, tearing through the wind at a terrifying speed. Evlesk was shocked by his urgency. She stuttered, "Fiancée?" "Yes." Sitting in the carriage, Evlesk was still shocked. She couldn't stop wondering, what, you're an invader but you have a fiancé? That means Crash's girlfriend lives in Hardenheart. She muttered about the terrifying rumors that the Valheim family's fiancé also lived there, and was surprised that any family had the guts to marry their daughter into such a terrifying family. Evelesk Quotes' face turned pale with fear, but Krash coldly replied, "That's not it." He stood up, his aura completely changing as he asserted firmly, "I am not an invader, Crash was just a nickname." A mysterious dark purple wave of energy began to cover Crash's body, gradually peeling away his long-standing disguise. Amidst the brilliant magical vortex, he officially revealed his true identity. "My true name is Crash Valheim, the youngest son of the Valheim family." Witnessing the transformation of the young master, Evelesk was completely paralyzed, her eyes widening in such horror that she dropped the heart she was holding. She trembled and stuttered in utter panic. "What, Valheim, Crash Valheim? So Crash is actually someone from the Valheim family?" Her scream echoed across the sky while the carriage was still racing wildly through the deep forest. Crash barked to cut through her panic. "Now is not the time to talk about that." The scene shifted to the cold, white, snowy mountain region. At the Hardenheart territory in the Rocken mountain range, temporary tents for the search team had been set up in a gloomy atmosphere. A choked sob full of regret rang out in the middle of the night. "It's all my fault. If only I had honestly told her that I had the white fire fungus. Bianca wouldn't have had to risk going up the mountain like that." This was Jenica Hardenheart, the second daughter of the Hardenheart family, sobbing in late regret. When asked why she followed Bianca up the mountain, Jenica choked back tears and explained that because that kind of mushroom wasn't sold on the market, the fool Bianca went to pick it herself with only an instruction book. She had to hurriedly assemble a search team to chase after her immediately. Rewinding time to a few days ago, amidst the white, snowy mountains of the Rocken Range, Jenica led the search team with the intention of snatching what the Valheim failure wanted to bring Bianca home early. Seeing Bianca walking heavily ahead, she called out, "Sister." But deep inside Bianca's heart, she always held an intense belief: Crash is not a failure. Jenica irritably asked why her younger sister was following the search team while Bianca stubbornly replied, "That's none of your business. I'll go if I want to." The tension escalated when Jenica spat out bitter words, telling Bianca to take the mushroom and go straight back to the Valheim house because she didn't even want to see her sister's face anymore. Bianca silently endured the pain. She knew clearly that Jenica always blamed her for their mother's death and had hated her since then. She apologized and promised to return as soon as she found the white fire fungus. Hearing this, Jenica clenched her fists in agony. If she hadn't said those hurtful words, this wouldn't have happened. Suddenly, a wave of killing intent, red like blood, erupted. A figure wearing a bizarre mask appeared from the void with terrifying pressure. He casually teased, "Can we join you too?" Blood began to pour onto the white snow. The scene became brutal as he spoke coldly. "Hello, two beautiful ladies." Jenica asked in horror about the stranger's identity, while the loyal guard, despite being wounded, screamed to urge the two ladies to run for their lives. The murderer roughly grabbed the soldier's head, clicking his tongue in annoyance. "How annoying! But today is truly my lucky day." The masked murderer licked his lips, his red eyes revealing excitement as he saw the prey ahead. Bianca, enduring the pain, guided and urged the heavily wounded Jenica, "Hurry." Amidst the wild, white snow, the butcher casually observed the two little girls struggling to run away. He smugly told himself that in such a wild place, meeting such perfect hostages, he smiled from ear to ear at the lucky catch. He didn't rush to finish them off but leisurely followed. A hoarse voice rang out, full of threat. "Where have the two ladies hidden?" Hiding behind a large rock, Bianca and Jenica trembled in fear. Bianca gritted her teeth, realizing the bitter truth: that person, he's enjoying playing with us. Despite being in a life-or-death situation, Bianca still gripped the blade of grass in her hand, her eyes showing determination. "Sister, I promised Crash, I will definitely bring the white fire fungus back to him." Witnessing her sister's stubbornness, Jenica screamed in despair, "Stop talking about your fiancé, I don't want to die here either." Suddenly, she paused when she saw an escape route. "Wait." Jenica came up with a bold plan. She whispered to Bianca, "Bianca, I have an idea." She explained that thanks to being equipped with ancient treasures, they could navigate the snow more safely than the murderer. Jenica pointed toward the dangerous ice cliffs and suggested that if they could reach the ice crevice area, it might slow him down. However, all the girls' schemes were seen through by the butcher. He stood right above the cliff looking down with a bizarre smile. "Smart, you ladies try to run away. Heh. Approaching the edge of the ice crevice, Jenica collapsed from exhaustion. She sobbed, "My legs have given out, just leave me here to die." Standing before the bottomless abyss, Bianca looked at her sister and asked, "Ready?" Jenica was dazed, not understanding what was happening. Bianca coldly commanded, "We will jump to the other side." Jenica panicked and protested because if they failed, they would definitely lose their lives. But Bianca calmly replied, "We're going to die anyway." Just then, the murderer had caught up. He swung his giant axe and bantered, "Hey ladies, standing there is dangerous. Come here with me." The moment he reached out his hand, Bianca yelled, "Now." Bianca unexpectedly pushed Jenica hard into the abyss, to the murderer's utter shock. He only had time to gasp, What the?" The murderer stood on the cliff edge and roared in a mix of astonishment and anger. "Are you intending to commit suicide?" He looked down into the crevice, smirking when he discovered the two girls clinging to the edge. Oh, so there's a spot to cling to there, huh?" Seeing the enemy had discovered their hiding place, Jenica was panicked. "We've been discovered, what should we do?" Not letting his prey get away, the butcher leaped straight down with a crazy laugh. "Looks fun, let me join in." Despite the dire situation, Bianca appeared extremely calm. She looked at her sister with a firm gaze and reassured her. "It's okay, Jenica." Right when Jenica was still dazed, it turned out she had lunged forward herself to hug the murderer to protect her sister. Jenica stood on the rocky ledge, only able to scream in helplessness. That was the last image she saw before her sister disappeared into the white snow. Fortunately, the search team reported that where Bianca fell, there was very thick snow accumulation, so it was possible she was still alive. Returning to reality, Jenica hung her head and sobbed in front of Crash. She tortured herself with late regret, but if only I hadn't suggested the crevice area, Bianca wouldn't have had to jump. She blamed herself for not giving her sister what was already in the mansion from the start, so they wouldn't have had to encounter that cold-blooded murderer. Hearing this, Crash's eyes hardened. He mused, so that was it. Jenica still wouldn't stop screaming in pain. "Don't say such irresponsible words, it's been exactly a week since that day." She feared that even if she escaped the butcher, someone like Bianca, who only knew how to read books, would struggle to survive deep in these harsh mountains. Meanwhile, deep in the snowy forest, Bianca lay curled up, her breathing faint at the base of a dry tree. In her delirium, she softly called out the name of the only person she longed for. "Crash, save me. It's so cold here." Opening her eyes to wake up, she murmured softly before realizing she had drifted off again. Over the past few days, she could only sustain her life thanks to some seeds and the warmth from the heat-soaking snow mushrooms, bringing her body to its absolute breaking point. Checking the wound on her leg, Bianca told herself, "My leg seems fine now." After falling from the cracked ice cliff with the assassin, she had to drag herself aimlessly toward higher ground to find a way to call for help. And she was lucky enough to find a spot filled with heat-soaking snow mushrooms radiating a warm glow. As the name suggests, heat-soaking snow mushrooms naturally emit warmth. Bianca thought to herself and decided to rely on this warmth to endure the bone-chilling cold. She used them to keep warm, found a small cave to hide in, and took out her survival book to use as a reference for handling her wounds and food situation. However, the cold, the unhealed wounds, and severe malnutrition had drained her strength. Bianca felt herself constantly drifting into sleep. She feared that at this rate, she wouldn't be able to hold on. The recent avalanche made her hope even slimmer as she knew for sure the rescue team would be delayed. Suddenly, the assassin appeared, looking menacing. "Damn it, I finally found you." He smirked and declared cruelly, "This chase ends here, little lady." Meanwhile, Bianca was struggling to walk through the white snow. She muttered, "I need to eat something." Suddenly, she froze when she spotted something under the snow and exclaimed, "Is this an acorn a squirrel hid?" "Sorry, Mr. Squirrel, let me borrow some," Bianca muttered while finding a tiny bit of food under the thick layer of snow. Suddenly, a blast of energy whistled through the and slammed right next to where she was. Bianca looked up in shock, her breath hitching at the sudden appearance of her enemy. A violent snow explosion erupted, throwing Bianca away, causing her to fall and roll on the cold ground. She only had time to let out a terrified huh. From within the snowy mist, the assassin's shadow loomed forward. He mocked her as a freak because her face didn't change color at all. He narrowed his eyes wickedly at her and said, "Getting money from the Valheim family is truly a pain." The assassin roughly grabbed Bianca by the neck, lifting her into the air and threatened her harshly. If you had just been a good hostage like a normal kid, you might have made it home safely. His gaze stopped at the sparkling snowflake hair clip, casually calculating how much he could get from selling it. On the verge of life and death, Binca painfully let out a faint ah. In her mind, the longing to return home suddenly surged intensely. Images of happy days at the manor appeared, with her quietly sitting and reading books next to Crash, along with the presence of the butler, Ariat. Memories of Crash's warm smile soothed her current pain. Bianca realized that every day spent with him had left her with something resembling feelings. Even someone as naturally emotionless as her knew that those days were truly very happy. A tear rolled silently down Bianca's pale cheek as she thought to herself, "If I had known I had feelings like this, I would have fallen in love with you sooner." These were the last thoughts that crossed Bianca's mind as she was being strangled. In desperation, she softly called the name of the person she missed. "I want to see you, Crash." Instantly, a mysterious black shadow appeared like a phantom right behind the assassin. With a powerful, impactful blow, Crash landed a thunderous punch that sent the butcher flying. Attacked by surprise, he roared in pain. "Ugh, what kind of dog are you?" Ignoring the enemy's roar, Crash gently caught Bianca's frail body in his arms. Looking at her pale face, he gently comforted her. "You did well, Bianca, I'll handle the rest." Binca only had time to call his name in a mix of surprise and relief. Crash smiled slightly, then turned to order the Black Crow. "Cream, I'm counting on you, take care of Bianca." Cream reminded him of the previous warning that neither he nor Evelyn could directly intervene in the fight to avoid breaking the invaders' rules. Furthermore, his Henca Chemien were completely useless in real combat. Meanwhile, Evelyn was shivering with fear of the Bloodhound's master. Crash understood that teleporting Bianca away was the safest option. However, Cream remained worried. He looked at Crash with glowing red eyes and warned, "The Bloodhound is much stronger than you. Last time it was just by chance there was a crack, but are you sure you can win this time?" Crash's eyes burned with determination. "No matter how strong the Bloodhound is, the winner will be me." The assassin shouted furiously, "Who are you? How dare you interfere in my business?" Crash coldly demanded, "Give it back." Facing the other's confusion, he asked, "Give back what?" Before the opponent's bewilderment, he retrieved the hair clip and explained, "That belongs to my fiancée." "Oh, so you're a Valheim?" The Bloodhound smirked when he realized his opponent's identity. Volleys of fiery red axe blows rained down, forcing Crash to strain himself to defend. He was shocked to realize the opponent's speed was too fast, even his sixth sense almost couldn't keep up. The pressure from this butcher was terrifying. He seemed to have reached the realm of a peak master. He roared crazily about how the ransom would increase tenfold if he captured both Crash and Bianca. Crash gritted his teeth. He knew he had only just reached the intermediate master level, but he still surprised the assassin with his tenacious defensive ability. The Bloodhound laughed gleefully, continuously launching stormy attacks. "Puhaha, let's see how much longer you can hold out." A fatal opening appeared. He seized the opportunity to land a massively powerful strike. That sent Crash's sword flying, burying it deep into the ground. Standing before the unarmed boy, the assassin triumphantly declared, "All right, that was fun, let's finish this now." However, he realized that Crash had suddenly vanished like a ghost, leaving the Bloodhound stunned. He disappeared. Suddenly, Crash emerged from under the snow right behind him, focusing all his strength into a close-range strike, aiming straight at the opponent's flank, sending him flying in agony. Crash thought to himself, "Even with a dull sword, I can't deploy a domain to counter his raw power." The flame fire skill was officially activated. The Bloodhound widened his eyes in terror, seeing his opponent determined to defeat him at any cost. He launched the Shadow Release skill. Crash immediately froze, unable to move. An oppressive, invisible feeling felt like falling into another dimension. The assassin slowly approached. "Kid, you can't take it. The rescue team will surely arrive soon, but let me send you to the afterlife first." Crash realized his senses were being ruthlessly distorted. This was a secret technique using sound to shatter aura and paralyze the opponent's nervous system. If it were the Crash of the past, he certainly would have lost his life before understanding what was happening. But now, he was no longer that weakling because he had survived things even worse than this. Crash gritted his teeth, deciding to push his aura to the absolute limit to activate his super perception, his sixth sense. Facing the boy's resistance, the Bloodhound smirked sarcastically. "Well, how much longer can you hold out?" Crash reminded himself not to be careless because the Bloodhound was on a completely different level than him. He decided not to reveal his hand yet, silently letting the assassin be complacent and believe he had won, right up until the moment he delivered the finishing blow. Realizing the search team was surely arriving, the bloodhound growled, "The search team is coming, you'd better disappear." However, all those threats were actually just psychological tactics to scare the opponent. A mana slash swept right over Crash's head, leaving him terrified. As for the bloodhound, he was calculating in his head. The way he moved when he anticipated my attack just now isn't normal. I don't know how long shadow release will last. I shouldn't get too close, it's too dangerous. Thinking this, the bloodhound dodged Crash's attack and uttered an insult. "You filthy rat, I know you aren't just a common stray dog." He said that, but he was also worried inside. "Damn it, I have to be more careful when approaching. I'll tear that girl into pieces and stuff them down your throat." He continued to utter insults, but it seemed the protagonist wasn't affected at all. Crash didn't take the bait even after being provoked like that. His face remained completely stoic. Thinking about this, the guy continued to provoke. "What's wrong? Is shadow release finally taking effect? If so, I'll just keep swinging until you break." While speaking, he started using the Shadow Axe Warrior skill, creating countless axes floating in midair, then directed them straight at Crash all at once. "Let's see if you can survive this endless illusion storm." Over here, Crash was still struggling to defend against the attacks by instinct. Witnessing that terrifying scene, Evelesk shivered in fear. My god, at this rate he'll die. Is this really the end for him? Standing on the sidelines, she broke out in a cold sweat. She struggled with a fierce internal conflict, wondering whether she should jump in to save him, but the fear of the mad dog, the bloodhound's master, enveloped her mind. Evelesk knew well that if she killed the bloodhound, that monster would hunt both her and Crash to the ends of the earth. No, Evelesk gritted her teeth, making up her mind. She told herself she could be a loner but not a cowardly person who forgets gratitude. She couldn't stand and watch her benefactor die such a painful death. Just as she was about to rush out to help, the Crow Cream flew in time to block her and ordered coldly, "Wait, don't interfere." Cream explained that Krash had chosen to fight this battle himself and asked Evelesk to place her faith in the person who had reclaimed her heart. He affirmed that Crash had enough guts to go all the way. Evelesk uttered a pragmatic comment. "Besides, if he really dies, I'll just find a way to bring that corpse back to life." At this moment, Crash was completely exhausted. He collapsed to his knees, bracing his sword against the ground to keep his balance while blood continuously leaked from the corner of his mouth. He gasped in broken breaths, "I've reached my limit. I've used my sixth sense to track the bloodhound's movements." But Crash gritted his teeth when he realized his own limit. He had burned so much aura he could barely open his eyes. And from here on, he was forced to bet his life on his own intuition. Suddenly an axe shadow swept by, causing Crash to startle in terror, faint. Before he could regain his senses, the butcher bloodhound roared madly, "This is your end." In that moment of life and death, a stream of bitter memories surfaced. "For a long time, I've realized that I have no talent, I've always been weak." Crash told himself he was nothing like the geniuses out there, those who could rightfully overwhelm their opponents with a fair and honest strike. That's why he had hidden his claws until this very moment. Crash's eyes suddenly flared with a deadly red light. He officially activated the breakthrough state, Fire-Eating Gate. By using Igni's fire, Crash recklessly converted all the world erosion energy stored in his body into raw power, forcing himself to surpass all physical limits. However, the price to pay was enormous, as he could only maintain this monstrous state for exactly 3 short seconds. Crash roared in excruciating pain, "I'm ending this right now." The explosive power left the bloodhound terrified. What? He could no longer track Crash's speed with the naked eye, thinking that if he didn't dodge, he would certainly lose his life. Crash unleashed the ghost shadow technique, creating a sound wave, but it wasn't enough to stop the protagonist. However, Crash clicked his tongue in regret when he realized the result after the strike missed its critical point. That sound distorted his vision at the last second. Seizing this opportunity, the bloodhound immediately covered his left arm in energy, and then lunged straight at him. Crash realized the danger. His sixth sense screamed in alarm as the erosion effect was fading. It signaled there was exactly 1 second left before the butcher's claws tore his head apart. Crash immediately initiated his absorption skill. And then, as if an explosion had occurred, both his arm and the bloodhound's arm were blown off. In that moment of life and death, Crash's concentration reached its most absolute state. His entire body was shrouded in a brilliant deep blue aura. In that moment, Crash seemed to feel as if everything was slowing down. His left arm bone began to be crushed by the erupting power. That was also the moment the Bloodhound realized he had lost. A single decisive blow was launched to finish off the enemy, but the price he had to pay was still very high. He had lost an arm and his body was covered in wounds. The strong can defeat enemies without breaking a sweat. But for someone considered weak to achieve victory, they must trade with their own blood, bones, and sacrifice. Cream flew closer and asked, "Satisfied yet?" Crash could only manage a cold smile through his broken breathing, satisfied not even close. Then he collapsed completely, his face hitting the cold ground. Cream ordered, "Let's go." A glowing teleportation circle opened to bring the group back to the Blue Pine Hall. Evelesk's giant carefully carried both Crash and Bianca in its arms. Recalling the memory from his previous life when he met Bianca at the mansion, "If I could express my emotions outwardly like that, at least in my eyes, this world wouldn't have been so gray." These were Bianca's private thoughts as she sat across from Crash in a quiet space. Crash watched her silently, a feeling of deep apprehension surging within him. She continued, "Between having emotions and being completely emotionless, which one would make me suffer more?" He wondered if, at that moment, the stirrings of the soul suddenly erupted within her body, would she die from the sheer shock? Bianca looked up, speaking bitterly, "We're strangers now. If something happens to me, you probably wouldn't care." Crash gritted his teeth in tension. He knew well that this distance stemmed from the cold-hearted, unilateral decisions of his family. The horrifying memory of the day Dagraken Hardenhalts, the head of the Hardenhalts clan, suddenly went mad surfaced. He had personally murdered his entire family before taking his own life, creating a gruesome scene. Bianca was the only survivor of that tragedy thanks to the sacrifice of her second sister, Jenica. Immediately after, the Valheim house deemed the marriage alliance with the Hardenhalts family worthless, and they unilaterally cancelled the engagement between Crash and Bianca. "So this place was prepared for us to say our final farewell," Crash said in a low voice. "Perhaps that is true and they will never have a chance to meet again." But instantly his gaze became cold as ice. He roared, "I already warned you, if you still want to seek death, I cannot interfere." The black hat skill was activated. A giant demon mouth appeared and swallowed the snowman entity that was controlling Bianca. Very quickly, the curse was swallowed by Crash into his hand. He had swallowed too many curses. Even the snow doll was being neutralized. After completing it, the male lead asked, "How do you feel?" That was the first day in her life that Bianca was finally freed from the curse coming from the snow doll. But now, the moment she regained her lost emotions, she became a monster. 3 years later, in the cold Hardenhalts land, the conflict continued persistently and endlessly. Two soldiers looked at each other wearily. One grunted, "How long is this war going to last? If it weren't for the interference of the Ephania Empire, their Starlon kingdom would have enjoyed peace long ago." The person next to him replied, "All this trouble stems from the second prince of the empire, named Likai, who set foot in the Hardenhalts region. The prince is holding secrets that could shake the foundations of the entire empire. So the empire sent envoys to prevent information leaks, and it was that very envoy who drove the Hardenhalts lord mad, leading to that tragedy. That is the reason the fires of war erupted so violently." People whispered to each other that after that incident, the White Beast personally killed the envoy, who was one of the top 10 experts, to take revenge, then retreated to live in seclusion at the Northern Ice Palace. In the middle of the fierce battlefield, a catastrophic explosion erupted right at the food storage. A voice rang out, "What the hell are those Starlon soldiers doing?" As those tasked with guarding the frontline food storage, how could they be so careless? Crash had now grown up with gray hair and strange tattoos on his neck. He dashed like a phantom through the snow, causing the guards to panic and scream, "Over there, that's the person from the demon faction. Absolutely do not take him lightly." Crash gritted his teeth. His body was reaching its limit. "Damn it, I've abused the curse power too much. Even a saintess wouldn't be able to save me now." Standing before the solid city gate, Crash told himself he must rely on Bianca's help. He hammered on the wooden door, shouting loudly, "Bianca, if you're inside, please open the door and help me." Instantly, a deep blue energy erupted from within. Sharp ice spikes suddenly pierced up from the ground, finishing off the entire squad of soldiers chasing Crash in the blink of an eye. Looking at the corpses pinned to the ice pillars, Crash turned his head slightly. A figure with long white hair gradually emerged from the ruins. "It's been a long time since we last met, hasn't it?" But the scene before him left Crash completely shaken. Bianca was standing there, but a sword had pierced through her chest. She called out weakly, "Lord Crash." Crash rushed over in a panic to catch her collapsing body. Bianca. He realized with horror that this fatal sword thrust was caused by the daughter of the messenger. In shallow, broken breaths, Bianca repeated the question she had once asked him before the tragedy occurred. Possessing emotions versus living emotionlessly. Have you ever wondered which state is more painful? Memories of that tragic day came flooding back when her sister Jenica had hugged her tightly and confided that she truly did not hate her from the bottom of her heart. "I don't hate you, I just hate my own nature." The dying words of her sister Jenica echoed in Bianca quotes mind. While she was in that hollow, soulless state, she had been unable to understand what those words truly meant, because they were a type of emotion too complex and filled with contradiction. Thus, when the Hardnhalz family, the place that had once caused her such misery, was destroyed, she felt not a single ripple of emotion at the time. It wasn't until she learned what emotions were that Bianca finally understood what her sister had said back then, that her sister had truly loved her dearly. Bianca buried her face in her hands, sobbing in late regret. If only she had been able to develop those feelings a little earlier, everyone in the family could have shared their sorrows together. And perhaps they could have sat down and talked to each other. The ending might not have been as tragic as it is now. Furthermore, perhaps she and Lord Crash could have been together more completely. Bianca gradually lost consciousness with a blood-stained face and late-coming tears. In her delirium, the call Bianca rang out. Crash startled awake in a hospital bed. His entire body was wrapped in bandages after the horrific battle with the butcher. A small hand gently touched his. Bianca sat beside him, saying gently, "I've always been here, Lord Crash. You've finally regained consciousness." Crash looked around the luxurious room and wondered, "Is this the Hardnhalz estate?" Bianca asked worriedly if his arm still hurt a lot. But Crash scolded her in a stern voice. "Why did you climb the mountain alone like that? If Cream hadn't pointed the way, I might not have saved you in time." Bianca naively explained, "I just wanted to find the Varandua snow mushroom for you." Crash was rendered speechless by the sincerity of the young girl. He suddenly remembered something. He reached out with a hand still wrapped in thick bandages, returning the sparkling snowflake-shaped snow hairpin to her. Bianca looked down at his bandaged hand and whispered, "I'm sorry for making everything turn out this badly." Despite his own injuries, Crash still flashed a radiant, reassuring smile. "Thank you. Thanks to this, I can finally start brewing the elixir." Bianca softly called his name, "Lord Crash." She lowered her head and confessed a painful truth. "I am currently still someone without emotions. Even though you risked your life to save me, leading to your current state, I am unable to know joy, anger, or sorrow with you." Bianca gripped her skirt tightly, her heart heavy. "Right now, I feel so restless that I cannot bear it anymore. I don't want to show a soulless face at times like this. I also long to smile with you, Lord Crash, to share your sorrows, and whenever you are furious, I want to be angry with you, but I don't want you to lose your soul and emotions like me. If you cannot smile, I don't want to smile alone." Seeing Bianca's melancholy, Crash gently reassured her, "Don't worry too much about that. The curse's effect is halved for those who are not the primary target." Bianca grabbed Crash hand. "If that is truly the case, Lord Crash, please help me find the emotions I have lost." A mysterious purple energy erupted around Crash. He smiled confidently and replied, "Yes, even if you hadn't asked, I was planning to do so anyway." Immediately, the magic padlock of the Black Hat skill reappeared brilliantly with the words, "Second seal release condition, become the most important person in Bianca's heart." The purple chains wrapped tightly around the frozen heart began to shatter under the overwhelming power. Bianca was stunned, her eyes wide with astonishment as she felt the vibrations deep within. Crash affirmed to himself, "I intended to do this from the very start." Crash smiled gently at the young girl. Unable to hold back any longer, Bianca rested her head on his chest and burst into heavy sobs. Hot tears streamed down, breaking the ice that had existed for so long. Crash told himself, if this plan succeeds, at least her world will no longer be painted in shades of gray. After a long while, she finally stopped crying. Sitting beside her on the bed, Crash gently asked, "Do you feel any better?" Bianca wiped her tears and answered softly, "Yes, thank you so much." But immediately after, her face quickly returned to its usual coldness. Crash watched her silently and thought, Just a moment ago she was crying like rain, now she's back to being an ice block. A knock on the door rang out, breaking the quiet atmosphere. From outside, the voice of Jenica Hardenheart spoke. "Crash, it's Jenica Hardenheart, may I come in?" Crash frowned warily. "Jenica, come in." As soon as Jenica entered the room, she was slightly stunned to see Bianca also present. Jenica noticed Bianca repeatedly rubbing her eyes and asked worriedly, "Bianca, what happened to your eyes?" Turning to Jenica, Crash got straight to the point. "Finally, what did you come here for?" Jenica hesitated and explained, "Let's go eat, little sister, don't look at me, I'm ticklish." She added that since Crash couldn't move around yet, she would send someone to bring food directly to his room later. Crash narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "Is there something that needs to be discussed privately among family members?" Jenica avoided his gaze, lowering her head to answer, "That is how it is." Crash judged silently. "She doesn't even dare to look me in the eye, huh?" He recalled his previous life where Jenica had displayed the exact same behavior before apologizing to Bianca. Perhaps this time she would apologize soon, too. Crash called out softly, "Bianca." Looking straight into his fiancée's eyes, Crash gave a thorough instruction. "If she apologizes, ignore her. Forgive her if you want, don't if you don't. When the time comes, let's return home together." Bianca stood still, stunned. A strange feeling suddenly arose, leaving her confused. Bianca reached up to touch her face. A radiant smile suddenly bloomed on her lips. She used 2 fingers to gently pull the corners of her mouth and felt joy for the first time in her life. Deep inside, Bianca happily realized that right now, her heart felt incredibly happy. "Then, please excuse me." Bianca said her goodbyes to go have a meal with her family. Crash waved and smiled. "Yes, travel safely and be at peace." But the moment her figure disappeared behind the door, Crash's face instantly turned cold. He called out loudly, "Evlesk, lend me your ear for a moment. Get over here fast." A wave of blazing red energy appeared. Crash commanded the magic rats, "Secretly follow and listen to what they say to Bianca." The rat nodded slightly to accept the order and vanished into the shadows. Crash clenched his fist, roaring threateningly, "If those people dare to utter a single word of insult toward Bianca, I will definitely make them pay dearly." Witnessing such protectiveness, the Crow Cream couldn't help but mock. "You don't even have an arm left, yet you still have the mind to worry about your fiancé. With that broken body, do you think you're capable of stealing immortality from me?" Cream looked at Crash sarcastically, not forgetting to add that reincarnated individuals were truly not easy to deal with. Crash casually waved his hand to reassure him, "Stop getting pointlessly angry. This wound will recover as soon as I get the Saintess to heal it." In the kingdom of Saint Freeman, one of the 4 great powers, a Saintess reigned with supreme divine power bestowed by God. It was the ultimate power capable of resurrecting the dead. Cream mocked, "The Valheim family will certainly never agree to spend a massive fortune just to invite the Saintess to heal a cripple like you." Responding to the contempt, Crash simply smiled. "Anyway, things have reached this point already. I am planning to replace my right arm with one even stronger than before." Cream was shocked to realize his true intention. "Replace your arm? Could it be that you intend to? Is that why you pulled that girl into your group?" Crash confirmed that recruiting Evlesk was precisely for this purpose. Because for a necromancer like her, stitching an arm back on was just a trivial matter. Evlesk, despite complaining about the sudden order, confidently asserted that this was as easy as eating candy for her. Cream shivered at his calculation. "You intend to exploit her until the very last bit of her labor. Reincarnators really are all terrifyingly two-faced." Crash casually replied that this was just an unintended coincidence when he had to sacrifice an arm. When Cream pressed for the identity of the person whose arm would be taken, Crash coldly declared, "The arm of the Sword Demon." Cream roared in shock, not expecting that Crash had known the Sword Demon was his subordinate all along. He was a legendary expert who once made the world tremble with a lightning-fast draw technique capable of defeating opponents in the blink of an eye. Most importantly, the Sword Demon was the subordinate Cream cherished and loved the most. The person he had poured so much effort into training all this time. Crash continued to smile reassuringly. "Don't you always want me to become stronger, then take care of me as thoroughly as you did with the Sword Demon?" Crash's provocative smile infuriated Cream, who shouted for him to shut up as he had already taught him the Rotom swordsmanship secret. Crash silently judged that he understood very well the affection Cream had for the sword demon as well as his other subordinates. He realized that the weakness of finding Cream's true body was actually quite simple, because he observed the world through the eyes of his subordinates. Crash knew that Cream had inadvertently created an emotional bond with them that he himself had never realized. Currently, we have assistance from the Saintess. Crash pensively repeated Arthur's warning about ultimate cruelty, using healing magic to prolong torture, forcing subordinates to reveal their hideouts. He realized this was the weakness to persuade Cream. Even though the sword demon had passed away from old age, his swordsmanship essence remained, and Cream certainly remembered every detail of it. Crash got straight to the point. If I attach the sword demon's arm to my body, his draw technique will be manifested once again. Wouldn't the sword demon himself desire such a successor? Faced with Crash's silver tongue, Cream could only click his tongue and say, "You are truly only good at talking." After considering it for a while, the Black Crow requested 2 days to prepare and calm down. Crash smiled with satisfaction. "Thank you, Cream." Looking at his bandaged arm, Crash breathed a sigh of relief that this problem was temporarily resolved. However, he began to worry about the Valheim family's reaction and the safety of Butler Arius, as his presence in Hardenheart would eventually be exposed. He told himself if the situation got too tense, he would just tell Ariad to ignore it, as they had never really paid much attention to him anyway. Yet lying on the bed, an uneasy premonition continued to well up in Crash's heart. Shifting the scene to Bianca's side, she had just refused something. Miriakin, the eldest son of the family, was slamming the table and shouting at Bianca, forcing her to yield her position as fiancée to Jenica. He realized Crash was no longer a waste after defeating the Bloodhound expert and wanted to turn him into the strongest trump card for his family. However, Bianca would not yield, for she was still a child, and whatever she wanted she had to obtain at all costs. "Therefore, I absolutely cannot yield this fiancé position. The only thing I want to protect until the end is my position as Crash's fiancé." Miriakin slammed the table in a rage, scolding her as a cursed being, saying she would be discarded sooner or later and lacked the strength to shoulder the responsibility. Jenica couldn't stand her brother's cruelty and stood up to intervene, but Miriakin coldly brushed her off. He forced Jenica to take on the engagement herself if she felt guilty toward Bianca, demanding that she think of the family's interests. On this side, Bianca also issued an ultimatum: "Whatever happens to this house, I don't care, because in this place there has long been no place for me. Neither father nor brother has ever truly cared about me. Therefore, my resolve will never waver. Even if I am banished from the family or am no longer a fiancé, I will still vow to follow and stay by Crash's side." Miriakin roared her name in anger, but a sudden knock on the door interrupted the tense atmosphere. "I'm busy right now, talk later," Miriakin shouted, but the door opened anyway. Crash walked in casually with an apology for barging in so abruptly. He admitted to accidentally hearing a few things from the hallway. Miriakin was shocked, called Crash Valheim's name, and advised him to stay and rest because his wounds hadn't healed. Crash smirked, presenting 2 conflicting rumors that were spreading. One was that Crash bravely saved his fiancée and destroyed the butcher despite losing an arm. The second was that the Hardenhart family's defense was so lax that they couldn't stop the infiltration of a murderer, putting the Valheim family member in life-threatening danger. Crash asked Miriakin, which rumor is more beneficial while the family head is away. Miriakin broke into a cold sweat and asked tremblingly, "What exactly do you want?" Crash went straight to the point. "It's simple. Please let Bianca be free to do what she wants." He requested that Bianca herself decide whether to continue or annul the engagement. Miriakin stood motionless at that suggestion. Crash added a firm assertion that he would never abandon Bianca and didn't care about that wicked curse at all. Miriakin couldn't help but be amazed at the deep bond between the two. Miriakin finally had to yield and sighed in acceptance. Crash didn't stop there. He made one final request. "Oh, there is one last thing about my arm. Just treat it as if a monk invited by the Hardenhart successfully healed it. Is that acceptable?" He also mocked that this would save the family the cost of hearing a monk, which was good for Hardenhart. Although Miriakin suspected Crash was plotting something, he had to agree and asked him to report when there were results. Crash thanked him and left with Bianca. Watching their backs, Jenica exclaimed to her brother that Bianca had truly changed a lot. Miriakin was pensive, even considering letting the two of them marry just to get it over with. In another development, in the shadows of the Valheim mansion, a powerful man held a report about Krash. He silently called his youngest son's name with a mysterious attitude. 2 days later, in a large courtyard at the Hardenheart mansion, Crash was diligently training despite his severe wounds. He realized reality was much tougher than he imagined. To combine the single strike with the sword demon's peak draw technique, he was forced to converge both aura and the invading toxic blood at a single point. Looking at his arm, which was radiating blue-purple lightning, Crash told himself, "Currently, I can only move one side, so I will try to experiment at any cost." Sweat soaked his face. Crash clicked his tongue. "Looks like my mind is still slow." However, the only bright spot right now was that the snow doll was still operating very stably. Thanks to its presence, the eruption of the invading toxic blood was completely suppressed. Not only that, it helped him realize the fatal weaknesses of the fire-burning skill. By nature, this fire-burning technique uses Igni's flames to incinerate the energy absorbed from the toxic blood, helping the body break through and exceed normal limits. Although it could create massive destructive power by using the invading energy as fuel, the price to pay was horrific. His entire body would fall into a state of complete immobility. Crash thought to himself with anxiety. His internal organs were at risk of being scorched if he continued to use it for an extended period. Looking up at the high sky, he yearned for the ability to control heat so he could maintain his power for longer. Suddenly, a cold breeze carrying the moon's negative power surfaced in his mind. Amidst the raging flames, the image of someone wrapped in bandages with fiery red hair and cold, sharp eyes appeared mysteriously. Crash broke into a sinister smile as jet-black feathers fell around him. "So, I've identified my next target." That was the ancient divine secret art, lunar shadow, of the Fire Emperor, Aslan Ygritte. His eyes burned with determination. As soon as his arm fully recovered, he would definitely go and seize his curse. Not long after Crash stood before a colossal, bizarrely shaped ancient tree, he softly asked, "Is this Evelesk's house?" The crow, Cream, immediately confirmed, "That's right." Cream kicked the door hard to call for someone. Immediately afterward, a girl dressed as a maid with long rabbit ears appeared, bowing respectfully. "It is an honor to receive you. Lord Crash, the master is waiting for you inside." Seeing the adorable rabbit ears of the maid number 8 belonging to the Abelask undead core, Crash couldn't help but be surprised. "She has rabbit ears." He stepped inside and realized the space was identical to his last visit. It seemed Evelesk had used her power to connect the dimensions together. Upon seeing him, Evelesk exclaimed excitedly, "Crash, you've arrived. Everything for the transplant is ready." Crash's gaze fell upon a withered, pitch-black arm lying on the table. "Is this the arm of the demon's sword?" Seeing the precious item before him, Crash asked directly if they could proceed with the connection right now. Evelesk warned seriously, "I can do it, but you will certainly endure excruciating pain. If you feel scared, we can stop." Seeing the maid number 8 holding a giant hammer, Crash couldn't help but be startled. "Do you intend to bash me to death with that hammer?" However, he quickly regained his composure. "I'm already too used to the feeling of pain." Evelesk smiled challengingly. "If you start crying later, I won't stop." She ordered number 8 to tie Crash up tightly and bring out the arm to begin the ritual. "All right, let's start." Evelesk shouted loudly. A fierce red energy erupted violently, engulfing Crash and the demon arm. Agonizing pain surged, forcing Crash to bite down on a piece of cloth to stifle his screams, sweat pouring off him like rain. The process of recovering and fusing the demon's sword arm was full of tension until it was complete. Evelesk focused intensely on the final step, with only the nerve connection process remaining. Brilliant blue and white electrical currents jolted repeatedly through Crash's body as the nerves began to reconnect, making his eyes widen in extreme shock. After the ritual ended, Evelesk breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at Crash with admiration. "You're excellent, you managed to endure it without passing out." Even though the pain left him drenched in sweat, Crash snapped impatiently. "Stop standing there and watching, quickly untie me, hurry up." Number 8 clumsily apologized and hurriedly removed the ropes that were binding him tightly. Crash thought to himself there was a reason he tried so hard to stay conscious. He stared intently at the newly attached arm, an arm dark, sinewy, and exuding a ghostly aura. It seems the attachment was successful. Well then, let's begin. Instantly, a swirl of purple-black energy surged forth, engulfing the monstrous arm. Causing Evelesk to gasp in horror, Oh, what the heck is that? It looks truly repulsive. The muscles on the new arm twitched repeatedly, emitting a terrifying pressure. Crash focused his energy. He knew that if he were to fall unconscious, the arm might lose control and go on a rampage after absorbing the blood poison. Because of this, he needed to regulate the aura himself, forcing it to adapt bit by bit to the new body. After a moment of struggle, the energy flow gradually stabilized. Crash clenched his fist with satisfaction. Right at that moment, the crow Cream flew over and asked, "Is everything finished?" Crash felt the perfect connection and replied, "Ah, it feels like it's my real arm now." Cream enthusiastically suggested, "Since you're learning the art of sword drawing, why don't you try testing it out a bit?" Crash turned to Evlesk to ask for the training ground, but she immediately flared up, "I'm not your servant, you know." However, as soon as Cream mentioned looking for an ancient book on hand-to-hand combat skills, Evlesk's attitude did a 180-degree turn. With her eyes shining like stars, she rushed over to flatter him. "Oh, Mr. Cream, Mr. Cream." This dizzying change left Crash speechless. Evlesk happily ordered number 8 to lead him to the training ground immediately. On the way to the training ground, Cream asked seriously, "How much do you understand about the demon sword's sword-drawing technique?" Crash replied casually, I only know it's incredibly powerful." This naive answer made Cream furious. He yelled, "What? You claim to be a regressor with only that much knowledge, yet you dare ask me for the demon sword's arm? Oh my god." Cream started explaining the core difference. While ordinary sword drawing involves simply accumulating aura and releasing it quickly, the demon sword's technique is on a completely different level. It splits the aura accumulated inside into countless tiny particles to create an explosion with the highest destructive efficiency. Those dust-like aura particles accelerate the explosion's speed when the pressure inside the sword sheath reaches its peak, strong enough to shatter the sword itself. "Everything I just explained, did you grasp it?" Cream asked after a long-winded theoretical lecture. Responding to that expectation, Crash simply admitted, "Not really." He realized that listening alone didn't help, so he decided, "Well then, let me try practicing it directly." Cream flapped its wings in encouragement. Just trust that arm." The sword strikes that the demon sword had unleashed 10,000 times are certainly still preserved in that body. Crash focused intensely, his eyes glowing with determination. With a good teacher guiding him and the demon sword's arm, he knew that everything was ready. The rest depended solely on his own will. Crash resolved to train relentlessly until he mastered the demon sword's legendary sword-drawing technique. Even if he had to swing the sword 10,000 times, even if his body was exhausted, he was willing to sacrifice everything to reach ultimate power. Many days later, the training ground space was continuously shaken by intense, surging deep blue aura. Crash practiced diligently, creating sword strikes with terrifying speed. However, number 8, standing and observing, poured a bucket of cold water on his efforts by commenting, "I can still see your sword path with the naked eye." Her words made Crash freeze, sweat running down his weary face as he realized he was still a long way from the invisible realm. He understood that the demon sword's drawing technique must reach a speed that the ordinary human eye cannot catch. To match the legend, Crash was forced to make the sword invisible to his opponent's eyes. "Personal speed is from aura, not the hand." He observed his hand emitting a blue aura in thought. Crash planned to return to the Blue Pine Hall to train other skills to comprehensively strengthen his power. He turned to thank number 8 for spending the last few days training with him. In return, number 8 advised him to be confident. Besides, someone with a single-digit number like her was already a true master-level sword expert. Even so, the opponents he had to face later would be far beyond the master level. Crash pondered and then softly thanked number 8. Evlesk suddenly poked her head in to ask, Why so quiet? Are you done?" He calmly replied, "Yes, I was actually looking for you. Hey Evlesk, today I'm returning to the Valheim family." This news made Evlesk startle. She asked worriedly what would happen to her. Crash explained, "Why follow me and expose yourself? Just stay here and guard the house." Evlesk bowed her head in sadness, admitting the truth. Because apart from the Valheim house, the outside world was full of terrifying people. Crash continued to warn about the 5 elders, those highly likely to have sensed something abnormal. "Therefore, can you help me? I have a task I need your help with." Standing before Evlesk and number 8, Crash commanded seriously, "Help me monitor the one called the Poison King. Don't let him approach the building. His name is Wang Yi, just being able to ensure the safety of clan leader Dagraken is enough. Evlesk was so terrified her eyes widened. You want me to deal with the Poison King, one of the top 10 experts? Well, I know it won't be easy at all. Evlesk hesitated but then made up her mind, but if it's only to protect the clan leader, I think I'm capable of handling it. Crash smiled brightly. Thank you, later if you need any help just ask me. Watching Crash's back, Evlesk blushed shyly, thinking to herself that this guy hadn't even known what she would ask for but had already promised. Number 8 worriedly asked the master if that was really okay. Evlesk pondered. She admitted that if it were before she would have certainly followed Crash, but if they stayed together longer. She feared she would mistake him for her old comrades. Moreover, following Crash meant facing extremely dangerous invaders, so this choice was for the best. Evlesk smiled to herself, thinking she only preferred staying at home, but she silently resolved. However, if one day Crash falls into a life-threatening situation, I will definitely repay this debt of gratitude to the end. The magnificent white carriage began to roll, bringing Crash away from this place to return to his family amidst the white snow. Welcome back safely, young Master Crash. Arius bowed respectfully when he saw Crash carrying a soundly sleeping Bianca in his arms. Crash softly asked if anything special had happened while he was away. Arius reported that the main clan had inquired about his whereabouts, but he had cleverly reported that Crash was with Lady Bianca. Because the people in the main clan always looked down on Crash as a good-for-nothing failure, the messenger only sent perfunctory information back to them. He even laughed and scorned everything belonging to this place. Because of that subjectivity, the clan leader didn't suspect or reprimand them, and that incompetent messenger was fired immediately after. Crash didn't spare the praise. You've done well, truly worthy of being my shield. Arius modestly declined, but he immediately brought up a shocking piece of news. The head butler is about to come here personally to reevaluate your abilities, Lord Crash. This is the person who commands the entire staff of the Valheim family, holding the power to evaluate direct line members to report directly to the family head. Facing a head butler at the Grandmaster level, Crash thought to himself, this is truly a bit annoying and troublesome. However, in order to seize the Fire Emperor Aslan's power, he knew he had to borrow the family's strength. To get things done effectively, one must know how to act. It was time for Crash to prove his true strength. Is there anything else? Crash asked while still carrying Bianca. Arius informed him there was a message from Danferlian. He urged Crash to bring the ingredients over immediately. Looking at the image of Danferlian excitedly waiting, Crash could only sigh, that guy is really always impulsive. He thanked Arius, but the old butler had one final important thing to report. Lady Charlotte came to visit. More precisely, she is currently resting in your room. Immediately, a brilliant blue-purple aura erupted on the balcony. Charlotte, the family genius, unexpectedly leaped down from the high floor with terrifying pressure. She landed arrogantly, the great sword strapped to her back exuding an overwhelming aura. The ground shook literally. Charlotte smiled at her younger brother and spoke, "Long time no see, Crash." Crash froze, cold sweat running down his face as his premonition of something bad had come true. He only managed to stammer, "Yes, sister." Forcing this sister to wait so long, I'm getting bored. This is Charlotte Valheim, the fourth daughter of the Valheim family. She smiled meaningfully when she saw Crash return. Crash, still carrying Bianca, could only scratch his head in confusion, replying, "I thought it would take a while before you arrived." Charlotte narrowed her eyes teasingly. "Well, did you return right now because you knew I hadn't arrived yet?" Crash broke into a cold sweat, hurriedly clarifying that that wasn't what he meant at all. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure radiated from Charlotte, making the space feel thick. Her eyes glowed threateningly as she grilled, "Is that really true?" Crash was stunned, his heart thumping before this overwhelming power. He wondered if Charlotte had truly surpassed the Grandmaster threshold. However, right after that, she changed her tone to one of delight, reaching out to pat Bianca's cheek and saying she had heard the whole story about Crash fighting until his final breath to protect his fiancée. Charlotte continued teasing, "Don't worry, sister won't take your lover away, but it's really sad." Crash looked at his sister with a wary gaze, explaining that he was only surprised because she had suddenly stormed into his house. Crash's accidental remark immediately wiped the smile off Charlotte's face. She narrowed her eyes dangerously, "My house." Immediately, she stomped hard, shattering the ground and creating a violent tremor right in front of the butler Arius. Charlotte coldly declared that this place was originally a mansion owned by the Valheim family, meaning this was their shared home. She pouted, claiming she simply came home yet was greeted by her younger brother with such cold-hearted attitude. Crash was drenched in sweat, thinking to himself, she and mother are cut from the same cloth, they want to flatten everything at the slightest provocation. He timidly asked if she was angry with him. Charlotte suddenly returned to her playful self. She thought she was the closest person, so she felt hurt when Crash hid so many things from her. She went straight to the point. About that business of making a contract with a god, and furthermore, you've advanced to the intermediate level, Krash. You really have grown up, Krash. The sister's praise left Crash speechless. He suspected whether Charlotte had awakened the mind's eye, the eyes capable of seeing through everything in the world. Charlotte pondered, saying she sensed a terrible and massive source of energy existing within Crash. Witnessing that frightening keenness, Crash realized why the hunting dogs couldn't defeat his sister. He was shocked to realize that what Charlotte had awakened was not a normal mind's eye, but a higher realm called the Star Eye, capable of seeing through the world via the stars. Thanks to possessing the Star Eye, which sees through the world's erosion, all the enemy's illusions were completely useless and finished off by her in the blink of an eye. Does that mean currently you are also seeing through my true state? Crash wondered inwardly when he realized the power of Charlotte's Star Eye. He glanced at the purple-black flame flickering on his hand and asked Cream, how do other people see my black flame? The Black Crow replied naturally that most of them would only see it as a flame full of ominous signs. Cream added that in this world, the number of people who could distinguish the power of the invaders could be counted on one hand, unless they were the invaders themselves or closely related to them. It took the example of how Crash saw the star marks appearing on the necks of his subordinates to illustrate. Crash nodded thoughtfully, so that's how it is. Cream continued to analyze Crash's power foundation, which was completely different from its own existence. While Cream is the embodiment of world erosion, Crash is only mixing that erosion into his aura. Because of this, most people would mistake it for him bearing some vicious curse. He realized that nothing had changed compared to the time before turning back time. Even though he was reassured by Cream, Crash didn't allow himself to be careless while carrying Bianca. Because if she concluded that he could use world erosion power, she might deal with him immediately. Charlotte suddenly leaned her face close to Crash, her deep blue eyes boring into him with the remark, "You're carrying a lot of equipment, aren't you?" Crash replied calmly that he only intended to test everything within his ability. Charlotte laughed. She thought he was just as greedy as she was, and all in all, Crash took after their mother more. Charlotte ordered him to leave Bianca in the room and follow her to the training ground. Looking at his sister radiating a brilliant blue aura, Crash knew he couldn't hide anymore. Charlotte decided firmly, I must test your current level no matter what. Standing opposite each other in the magnificent training ground, Crash couldn't help but sigh because before regression, he had never had a chance to directly spar with his sister due to the huge gap in their levels. Charlotte took a stance, confident that her younger brother had learned many new techniques over the past time. She growled, if you intend to go easy on me, sister will truly be angry. Attack me with all the strength you have. Crash gripped his training sword, his eyes burning with determination. I understand, sister. However, the two stood still without attacking. The sister thought to herself, it's been 3 minutes and my younger brother still hasn't drawn his sword. I don't even see aura covering his body. She spoke up, even though I was the one who challenged you first, letting you attack first seems a bit awkward. But why haven't you moved yet? Immediately she stomped hard and lunged. The tip of the sword was right in front of his eyes, but his eyes were still tightly shut. He felt the intense heat boiling within his body, burning off the erosion power to break through his limits. His eyes turned bright red. His hand started drawing the sword. This moment of breaking the limit was only 1 second. I must make the most of it. In a blink of an eye, he immediately drew his sword and executed the technique Flame Devourer, first form. The sword emitted a terrifying black aura, causing his sister to be stunned. Crash, a shockwave when the two swords collided directly. Crash had clearly put everything into the very first blow. Next was the second blow unleashed on the sword. Powerful black aura surged out. He unleashed a terrifying mana slash. And although she blocked it this time, the wooden sword in the sister's hand was snapped in two. On her side, Charlotte speculated that Crash seemed to still be hiding something, but because her sword had broken, she had no other choice. Since the wooden sword was ruined, she would temporarily use an aura sword instead. With just one collision, she easily knocked the sword from Crash's hand. This is the symbol of a swordsman who has reached the Grandmaster level, aura sword, a blade created from compressing pure aura. To deal with his sister, he had to unleash the black hooded sword technique. A sword was immediately launched from the mouth on Krash Quotes's palm. The sword launched from his palm almost hit her. Krash Quotes's voice rang out, "With my current abilities, perhaps I still cannot pierce through your aura, sister. However, I have already managed to touch you." Time passed quickly. At this moment, Charlotte was also recalling her battle with her younger brother. Charlotte silently admitted that Crash was the first person capable of sensing and penetrating her flow of power. Her protective aura was originally a special energy bestowed by the gods, a perfect barrier enveloping her body that those weaker than her, or even those on the same level, had never been able to touch. Yet Krash had achieved the impossible. She told herself that she had held back by only using energy to create sword chi at the final moment instead of true swordsmanship. However, she understood that if Krash Quotes's desperate attack had truly landed, she might have lost her life in that moment. This was something that should have been impossible against a grandmaster like her. At the same time, Charlotte encountered the butler Arius in the mansion's courtyard. She asked anxiously, "Arius, is Crash's arm doing all right?" Arius respectfully reassured her, "For my master, these few wounds are nothing." Charlotte pondered, confirming the rumors. "Ah, I heard Crash intends to enroll at Rahin Academy, right?" Arius confirmed that it was indeed true. Charlotte smiled faintly, full of anticipation. She calculated silently, "Only 3 weeks left until the enrollment day, right? That should be enough time." As an older sister, Charlotte decided to head to Rahin Academy in advance to await her brother's performance. Time flew by, and by now, Crash had arrived at the alchemist's house and was being shown the results. Cream was slightly surprised, not expecting someone to be able to finish in such a short time. "Crash, try asking if there is a training ground here. This elixir is best taken in a spacious place." Hearing this, Crash turned and suggested, "Darling, could you lend me the training ground for a while?" Darling excitedly agreed immediately, believing it was the best choice for that type of medicine. Crash wondered about the true meaning of the phrase, but he prepared himself nonetheless. Removing his outer garments, Crash sat cross-legged in the middle of the large training ground, muttering to himself. It's great to be able to drink an elixir, but what is the meaning behind that expression on Cream's face? The skepticism was clear on Crash's face when he asked back, "In the end, what are you giving me to drink?" Darling replied in surprise, "Oh, you drank it without even wanting to know what it was," Cream explained. "That elixir is called the Nine Dragon Tear. According to legend, anyone who drinks this concoction will become a dragon after 9 screams. It works on a cruel principle, destroying the body and aura simultaneously to force the user to become stronger, similar to how muscles must be torn apart in order to grow." Cream looked at Crash with a mysterious gaze and taunted, "Aren't you already too accustomed to pain? Just endure it 9 times and you will shed your skin." Crash was left speechless after hearing that. The heat began to spread. Krash commented softly, "It feels like a burst of heat is exploding inside me, but it's not yet at a level I can't endure." This calm reaction left Cream stunned. "What is this?" Crash explained that although it felt like being burned by fire earlier, now it was just a lingering sensation of scorching heat. He nonchalantly asked himself, "Perhaps it's because I've been through something similar before, so it feels normal." Cream was left in utter disbelief. "How the hell did you live your previous life to be this horrific?" Crash replied, "A single day wouldn't be enough to tell the whole story." Darling, seeing Crash talking to a crow, became somewhat anxious, wondering if it was a side effect of the medicine causing hallucinations. Ignoring the whispering, Cream urged Crash, "Whatever, just try to absorb as much as possible. The higher one's focus, the faster the absorption rate." Crash immediately closed his eyes, pouring all his willpower into merging with the medicinal power. A stream of brilliant golden flame suddenly erupted, enveloping his bare body. Crimson Garden August appeared in the form of a fiery red soul behind the crow, silently judging, "The ability to focus is truly admirable." Although this guy had previously endured the pain of having his internal organs burned and his nerves reattached, that very stubbornness was exactly what made him dangerous to you. He looked intensely at Crash, affirming that among all the reincarnators he had met, he was the one with the most iron-willed and insane determination. Crimson observed Crash writhing in the medicinal power and judged silently, Perhaps it's because you desire to reach your goal so much that you disregard such pain. He asserted that even if Crash collapsed, he would force him to stand back up no matter what, because that was the price of the contract between the two. In his mind, Crash felt a staggering change clearly. The capacity of his aura, once as small as a puddle, had now expanded like a vast lake. Previously, he could only train the quality of his aura using the secret techniques of the Green Pine Pavilion, but his innate aura capacity had always had a certain limit. Yet, since drinking the 9-dragon tier, Crash had broken through from a mid-level expert to a high-level expert in the blink of an eye. He confidently asserted, "This means I finally stand on equal footing with the geniuses." Watching Crash emerge from the blazing flames with powerful, deep blue eyes, Cream couldn't help but marvel at how tough and persistent he was. He was amazed to see Crash use the XNIS flame to incinerate all the impurities the medicine had flushed from his body. Crash knelt down, gasping for air, sweat drenching him, but his eyes remained cold as he looked at the Black Crow. "If I weren't this persistent, how could I fight against enemies stronger than myself? And that includes you too." Cream could only let out a helpless chirp at his defiance. When Crash stood up and gathered himself, he was surprised to see everyone still waiting for him. Darling immediately asked, "Crash, are you done?" Darling explained that because Bianca insisted on not leaving his side for even a second, he had to stay there waiting with her. Bianca blushed shyly, softly asserting, "Since I am his fiancée, we must always be by each other's side." Crash gently patted her head and told her to go to a warm place to wait next time, making Bianca extremely happy. She noticed that Crash seemed to have grown taller, and his clothes were beginning to feel tighter than before due to his body's rapid growth. Witnessing this display of affection, Darling suddenly had the crazy idea of wanting to propose to Charlotte, which immediately caused Crash to radiate a pitch-black killing intent. "Are you tired of living or what?" Despite that, Darling still made a devilish face and flirted, asking Crash to be his lover, making him want to send this alchemist to meet death immediately. "Hey Crash, you're enrolling at Rahin Academy next year, right?" Darling suddenly asked. Crash casually replied with a definitive yes. Immediately, Darling excitedly declared he would go to school a year early just because he wanted to hear Crash call him senior with pride. Crash narrowed his eyes at the alchemist, thinking that Darling wasn't in the same class as Charlotte, and Rahin Academy didn't even use the standard year-based grading system. Darling replied calmly, "Yeah, I know, you can't continue studying if you don't pass the subjects, right?" Crash was stunned, not expecting Darling to have prepared so thoroughly for enrollment. He smiled radiantly, believing this was a golden opportunity to be by the side of both him and Charlotte. Crash couldn't help but wonder, she's going to school too, isn't she planning to travel the world to prevent the erosion? Darling just winked, suggesting it was his intuition sensing that Charlotte would enroll this year. He hugged Crash tightly from behind and pouted, "So I'll wait for you at school next year. I'm very lonely, hurry up and follow me." "I'm very lonely, hurry up and follow me." Crash could only frown in annoyance at his friend's excessive enthusiasm while Bianca stood silently observing from behind. Crash could only scream loudly to chase him away. In another development, a report from a man echoed, "Master Butler, I heard Crash has returned to the Green Pine Pavilion." In front, the chief butler said coldly, "Is that so? If so, in 1 week, report to the Green Pine Pavilion that I will personally inspect Crash." The man received the order and quickly departed. When left alone in the room, the chief butler also erupted with a burst of aura, then muttered, "This is getting interesting. Let's see how much Crash has progressed." Not long after the two finally crossed paths, she immediately noticed the significant change in his appearance. Catherine Valheim wore a carefully practiced polite smile, but her cold eyes exuded no warmth at all. Crash greeted her with a polite, formal tone but couldn't help but remain guarded in his heart. Catherine Valheim was not just the chief butler, she was also his aunt, a top-tier combat master who demanded absolute perfection. She explained that because he had defeated a high-level expert like the Bloodhound, the family needed to re-verify his true strength. When Crash tried to diplomatically attribute it to luck, she just smiled faintly and replied that luck is also a part of ability. Crash realized there was no way to hide his true level of progress from a master like her. Her face turned cold as she clearly stated the stakes. If he could not keep up with Charlotte, he had no qualifications to aim for the position of family head. The bluntness of the ultimatum caused Crash a moment of surprise. She spoke of a future where bloodlines would no longer hold meaning, when the destruction of the world would leave only the strongest standing at the peak. Crash couldn't help but let out a soft, sarcastic laugh at her warning. Catherine stopped, frowning, wondering what could be funny about such a grim outlook. He laughed louder, feeling that the idea of becoming the head of the Valheim family is difficult, was almost ridiculous after everything he had been through. His reaction clearly annoyed her, as she wasn't used to being mocked by a junior in the family. Ignoring his attitude, she decided to begin the test to see how much capability he actually possessed. Up close, she could clearly see the change in his eyes. He was no longer like the teenager from a year ago. She drew a training sword from her waist, her movements fluid and precise. Assuming her stance, she set a single goal for him. If he could make her take even a single step back, he would pass the test. She was ready to strike. Her presence alone filled the entire hall while she waited for Crash to make his move first. Crash prepared his move, acknowledging that even though his opponent was a master, he had to proceed. Catherine observed him intently, her sharp eyes narrowing as she analyzed the special posture he had chosen. Crash shifted his center of gravity, his hand hovering over the sword hilt in a specialized draw technique that made his opponent feel a terrifying sense of familiarity. Catherine brought her hand to her neck, feeling the old scar throbbing in pain. His posture stirred memories of a battle where she had nearly lost her life. Her eyes widened in genuine astonishment as she fully recognized what she was witnessing. A stream of thick blue aura began to vibrate violently inside Crash's scabbard. The pressure was building to the point of exploding. A purple Haya mask symbol glowed brilliantly on the back of his hand, marking the true essence of the technique he was about to unleash. A phantom image of the sword demon appeared behind him. His auras merged as the young man prepared for a fatal strike. Crash gritted his teeth, enduring the terrifying power of the compressed energy. A thin wisp of blue smoke escaped from the corner of his mouth. Streams of dark purple and black aura gathered around the sword hilt. Finally, he drew his sword in an explosive motion. A slash was unleashed, forming a massive wave of dark energy that tore through the training ground. Catherine raised her sword to defend, her blue aura erupting as she struggled to contain the collision of the purple shockwave. She held her position, acknowledging the power of the strike with a serious but impressed gaze. A blue light flickered on her face as she admitted that although she didn't know where he learned it, this technique was truly top tier. Two streams of power collided, creating a blinding flash of light. The training hall shook under the pressure of the two opposing auras. Dust began to settle around them, leaving the two standing amidst a field full of cracks and scars. Catherine looked down at her hand and realized the terrifying power of Crash's slash had snapped the training sword in two. A rare smile of satisfaction appeared on her face as she admitted that even with an old training sword, she hadn't expected it to be smashed like that. Delivering her final verdict, she officially announced that Crash had passed the test with excellence. She turned to leave, congratulating him on doing well. As Crash hunched over, the exhaustion finally caught up with him. He called her back with an unexpected request, surprising her when he asked to join the Blue Sea Knights instead of the top elite legions. Catherine stopped, frowning in confusion, asking why he would choose a mid-level knight legion instead of something more prestigious. Crash looked straight into her eyes, his gaze firm and unwavering as he confirmed his choice. She observed his expression for a long time, wondering what plot he was hatching behind those calm eyes. She agreed to forward his request to the commander of the knights. The heavy hall doors stood tall behind him as the test ended. Left alone, Crash finally let himself fall onto the stone floor, gasping for air as the adrenaline faded. A powerful voice suddenly broke the silence, making Crash jump and widen his eyes. Standing before him was Valpan Basilag Valheim, the head of the family. An oppressive, heavy aura enveloped him. Crash could barely breathe as he looked up at his father. The man's terrifying aura was pressing him into the ground. His father remarked that he had grown up and told him to rest for the whole afternoon to recover from the evaluation. Without another word, the family head turned and departed with his entourage, leaving Crash wondering why he had appeared. 3 weeks passed and Crash appeared in the bustling magical city of Harem, home to the sacred Red Magic Tower. He strolled through the crowded streets with a friend, weaving through the territory of magic worshippers. They passed shops selling strange potions and ancient scrolls, the city's atmosphere filled with the scent of alchemy. Crash explained the history of the city with a knowing smile. Memories of the future gave him an advantage in this foreign land. His thoughts drifted to other reincarnators, especially the person who had reached the peak fastest in the previous timeline. That person was Evlesk, the Red Witch. a powerful mage who had retained her memories and vast magical knowledge through her reincarnation. Crash knew that with her power, it was only a matter of time before she returned to her legendary position as an archmage. He rested his chin on his hand, realizing the most dangerous thing was if she discovered he had also reincarnated. Crash Valheim stood before a quiet pub at sunset, determined to finish his business and leave as soon as possible. Beside him, Bianca looked at the building curiously, asking if he was familiar with the pub's reputation. Upon entering, Crash explained that although it looked ordinary, it was a famous spot known only to gourmets. He pointed at Lilina, a maid of the Ygritte family, who was sitting at a nearby table greedily stuffing food into her mouth. Lilina finally finished eating and skipped away with a cheerful greeting, confirming Crash's belief that her personality hadn't changed. As she disappeared into the sunset, Cream stood on the roof observing, his red eyes fixed on the fair-haired maid he had been tasked to track. Crash remained at the table, confident that sending Cream to track her would soon bring back the necessary information. He smiled and suggested to Bianca that they should also enjoy a good meal while waiting for the feathered detective to return. By the time they stepped out into the night, Bianca was rubbing her eyes. The long wait made her clearly sleepy. Crash advised her to try and go a bit further. His mind was focused on the report he expected Cream to bring back at any moment. With a flutter of black feathers, Cream swooped down from the sky, squawking because he had been left without dinner. Bianca gently stroked the crow's head to soothe it, while Crash bent down, eager to hear what he had discovered while tracking the maid. The story shifted to the Ygritte family mansion that night, where a heavy, unsettling silence hung over the entire building. Aslan Ygritte, the grandson of the Fire Emperor, appeared with empty, hollow eyes, hinting at a tragic and final decision. Absolute chaos erupted when the servants in the house discovered the young master. Horrifying news spread that Aslan had committed suicide.